Just waiting on this November inflation print. We'll get CPI data coming through here in about 10 seconds, 3.1% on the consensus number here for this latest reading. We'll bring this to you live as it comes through. 3.1%, so in line with expectations, no change across the board. The inflation rate month over month for November, 0.1% to the upside. Core, 4%, also as expected, in line there for the core year-over-year number, 0.3% on the month-over-month core number, also in line with expectations. Dollar downside right now. Yields coming off a little bit, just hearing as well. So again, if you're just running a little late there, exactly as expected for November CPI, 3.1% versus 3.1%. How many times will we hear sticky in the next couple of days heading towards Fed Chair Powell coming up at 2:30 p.m. tomorrow? We'll get not only the interest rate decision, but we'll hear from Fed Chair Powell after this latest print. We'll see if he changes the language at all going into this interest rate decision tomorrow. It is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. Tradertv.live starts now. Can you guys flip this TV? The market's liking this in line with expectation print here. Futures were pretty flat to start things off. Now 0.5%, or coming back in a little bit now, but 0.4 for the NASDAQ, 0.3 for the S&P 500. There's the cues. Yeah, nice move higher after the initial dip there on that number. Again, if you missed it, exactly as expected. 0.3 on the core month-over-month number, 4% on the year-over-year number, 3.1% on the headline number, which was exactly as expected there for November inflation. So here we go again. The difference being, we're 24 hours away from hearing from the man himself on this, so we'll see what he has to say. Again, 2:30 tomorrow, the press conference will come through. There's not going to be a change as far as the interest rate is concerned tomorrow, but let's see what happens. I mean, here's another inflation print with no change.
What's interesting to me about this, Brendo, is something that you and I have talked about, which is that shelter inflation lags about a year. So this core 4% that we're seeing, is it really 4%? Or is the market discounting the fact that it is quite lagging? And the example that's been given a lot is go to apartments.com, do an analysis about the year-over-year change in rent, and then compare that to what's being factored into the CPI, so for shelter inflation. So we'll have to wait and see, but good look so far.
Yeah, I'll pull this up real quick. Shout out to our friends at Financial Juice here for this, but there's the month-over-month number, 0.1% back to the upside. So this is starting to get, if you remember in October, it was exactly flat, no change whatsoever, so 0.1% back to the upside. That was expected, but this is starting to get a little bit choppy as far as directionally speaking on these month-over-month prints here. Just hearing Fed futures rising, or Fed fund futures rising back to the upside. So we'll check out some of the yields. We'll check out the dollar as well. Looks like the dollar downside to start once again. Sean with another day off today. He's back tomorrow. Obi back with us. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Yeah, I think we're. How many times are we going to hear the term sticky? Well, you could probably hear it a million times, but I'll do my best to make sure we keep it the stickiest of the icky around here. I'm going to get that thrown in at least 5 or 6 times today, but the market is doing the thing that the market has been doing forever. Well, not forever. Generally forever, actually. We're going up. I like the fact that we can continue a trend today. As long as that's the case, I don't think you want to fight it. I'd never want to get married to the initial direction after any economic number. So yes, the NASDAQ did. Let me zoom it in for a bit. The NASDAQ did make a little bit of a breakout there, but the trend has been to find opportunities to get the long in the overall market, with the notable exception yesterday in the Magnificent Seven at the open. Right, you saw what happened from 927 to about 940-ish. It was just, they were all pretty weak. That could have been something related to what's going to happen on Friday with some rebalancing. But either way, things did calm down after that, and it was a broad market rally. You got Uber, which has been in play every single day because they're going S&P 500. You have Oracle, yuck, to the downside. That could see double digits, but it's got that $100 level in play to be sure. The chips, AMD was absolutely gorgeous. And Intel looking pretty solid. AVGO was looking pretty good. And that was just simply a day too late on Macy's. But, oh, sorry, a day too early on Macy's. But we're just talking about this. It's not about predictions. It's about trades, right? So sometimes you can like a short, but you have to let it set up and look good. And a trade is much different from just saying, I think the stock is going to pull back. You got to be able to put the trade on. Macy's down at 20 bucks, which is kind of where I thought it would be by the end of the day yesterday. But I was wrong about that.
Yeah, pretty solid CPI, I guess, as expected. Sticky icky for sure. A little bit of that blueberry yum yum we were talking about earlier. All right, so yeah, so we are kind of selling off a little bit off of that initial reaction. So as expected, results on the CPI, maybe a little bit of a sell, but I think Neil's definitely astute in pointing out the overall trend that we have been having has been up. And my number one goal for today, Neil, is trying to trade with the trend as best as possible, not to get lost in the sauce and get too carried away by some fluttering tape. Just try to keep it keep the mental in check.
Don't get lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. You don't have to worry about getting lost in the sauce now. It's the holiday season soon. You have plenty of time for that. Not when the markets are open. That's what we do on the weekends or whenever you do your thing. Shout out to my man Sean. I was surprised. I thought I thought that Green Bay was going to do a little bit better than they did. I'd say it was a bit of an upset last night for the Packers, but you can see I'm pretty happy that Miami lost because that just means the Buffalo Bills are alive. And a lesson to all of everybody out here, because we're all financially literate, right? Shohei Otani, 10 years, $700 million, you know what, okay? It's not $700 million when you defer $68 million per year for 10 years. The deal works that he's getting $2 million a year for 10 years, and he's getting $68 million a year after that. Works out to like 46 over 10, which last I checked was less than what a lot of teams were willing to pay. But this is the structure that he wanted so they can be competitive. Kudos to him. He gets endorsement money, and the Dodgers were able to win, but the Toronto Blue Jays could have afforded more than that. I'm looking right at Rogers. I own Rogers shares. I'm a season ticket holder. You could have afforded a $500 million deal. Otani signed for less, and I'm not happy about it.
So wait. The conversation we had yesterday about him getting that 700 for the 10 years, he said no?
No.
He extended it.
He apparently, all of the teams he talked to, he was looking to defer money so that team could stay competitive and spend money on the team now. So he deferred a boatload of the contract, like 90-something% of it, so that the team he's on can be competitive and spend on other players. Now, he can do that because he's going to make $20 to $40 million in endorsements every single year. It's a genius move. It's a smart move by him. Most athletes wouldn't be able to do that with life-changing money. They just set themselves up. But the frustrating part is that means the Jays could have afforded him. But anyways, that's my baseball rant for the day. Never trust those contracts when you see what's reported in the media. A lot of times it ends up being not true. Once again, that's the case.
All right, market's back upside here a little bit. We're trying to hold on to positive territory. Here is the dollar right now. You can see the initial move downside in a big way here through to 103.5, but a bounce right now in the dollar as well. So yields are down across the board, but also starting to bounce. 4.31 for the 30-year right now, 4.21 on the 10-year right now. So we are moving back to the upside. Market overall, equities downside. Let's see how this plays out. But if you missed it, exactly in line with expectation for November CPI there at 8:30. Fed fund futures are actually moving towards a higher percentage in chance of a cut in March than May now. So the date is kind of shifting towards March versus May, which is kind of interesting as far as this number is concerned. So the market really not buying this message right now.
Yeah, when I was talking to Frank maybe a couple of weeks ago, that was a very low percentage that we got the cut in March. We were looking more about July, but I think as we pull forward some of these numbers and as inflation looks like it's easing a little bit more, or at least in line, maybe we get an earlier rate cut. I know I was listening to a podcast this morning with respect to Canadian banks and the amount of mortgage that they have up for renewal. So on this side of the border, we're really anticipating cuts into next year. I don't know if they're the same circumstances is in the States, but Should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, our economy obviously nowhere near as strong as the U.S. at this point, so it would make a lot more sense. Here's Bitcoin, meanwhile. The initial move higher, we come back into 41.8, but back towards that 42,000 area right now for BTC. That's a 5-minute chart, FYI. Coinbase up as well this morning, held up quite nicely through that volatility there on that number at 830, but Coinbase up about 2% on an upgrade as well.
Yeah, that should be back into play today. I mean, Coinbase obviously had some moves, just like a lot of things did yesterday. It wasn't always to the upside. They were relatively weak, but that 42,000 you're trying to battle. I think I looked at the first level on Bitcoin when we made that push into 40,000. That dip into 40,000. There you go. We bounced and got to double top 42.5. This is a 15-minute chart here. So even if it does press higher, I think you might find some temporary resistance there. Talking about Coinbase, this was a case of, okay, took a couple of lumps. Didn't bungle it like Macy's, because Macy's was just a loss. Like, there were shorts to be had. I just probably missed out on the best of them on Coinbase. So I'll call it a fail for that reason. But Coinbase put in a good support level. And when I say it put in a good support level, you have the close on Thursday, the Friday low, and then Monday's bottom, all coinciding with pretty much the same level, just underneath 136. So it's not really a triple bottom. That's not the right way to call it. It's a double bottom for the last 2 days, and then it's a previous close. Previous close prices matter. I think you've heard this get said on the show a lot. Sharif says it a lot. I don't think we say it enough, Sean and myself. But we all look at, and traders in general tend to look at that closing price is a little bit more significant than opening prices. And when you're looking at a daily chart, that's true. When I'm looking at my 15-minute, that's also going to be true. So I don't know if we see a shot at the 136 level. When you bounce off a level like that on support, I generally think it's possible to trend back up to whatever the previous resistance was. So it holds what's essentially a higher low at a key level. You can see a triple top at 148. I'm not saying we get to 148, but I'd look for long. I don't know if you get 136. I think 38.5 stands out for a bit of a dip buy kind of situation as well. Got to keep your eye on spot prices, because if we get to that 42.5, I'm probably looking for some kind of reversal. The key levels up there would be 145 and 148. Ideally, the short would be at that top, 148 into 150 on Coinbase, where things are a little more simple. It's not difficult to look at a level like that and see a short. It's a little more difficult to try to short it in the low 40s. So I think the key levels are pretty clear. As I just realized, I drew this and didn't save it. So just for myself, I'm going to put that line in there and hit save to be sure that every time I come to Coinbase, I'm going to be able to see that Friday close double bottom level, 136.
Yeah, crypto definitely doing some nice moves there. Coinbase had some pretty solid opportunities yesterday, and again, similar with Mara and Riot, we've been covering these since Bitcoin's been doing what it does, and yeah, we got that nice little flush yesterday, and it's held that 40,000 pretty well off of that. So coming in today, I think we talked about that 15 and that 16 on Mara yesterday. Take a look at this consolidation, a little bit of an over/under level as well over the past week or so. Just trying to see what the chart is telling us, what it's been doing with that $15 mark. And yeah, I like these consolidations and the idea of the over/under in and around that 15. But again, this stuff moves off of Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin has like a crazy move, like an outlier move relative to some of the price action it has been having as of late, I think you can capture some of those moves a little bit cleaner on the equity side as well. A little bit of a lag, you would say, right? So Bitcoin does the move either early morning or overnight Sunday, and then coming in Monday you can catch the short on Mara. That's usually or coin. So there's a little bit of a lead lag kind of a trade that happens with these Bitcoin and related equities.
Right. We'll have Frank Caberna on coming up later this afternoon. We'll get his take on what this means as far as the inflation story goes. If you remember, going back to last week, he had a chart of the actual Fed Fund futures pointing towards May. Was the range was narrowing the most on those. So we'll see if that's still the case coming up this afternoon. Make sure you join us for that. Here's Oracle. Ouch. Downside in a big way here, trying to hold on to 103 after finishing yesterday, 115.5. Yeah, earnings not good here for Oracle.
Yeah, we'll talk about the details of this one on the rundown, Brendo, but this was interesting because Elon Musk actually hired Oracle for his XAI company, and he actually wanted more compute than what they had. And so they were kind of caught in the middle there. They didn't know whether to spend some money on expanding or to kick that can down the road. And so it looks as if they're kicking that can down the road, despite the fact that they're not including his companies in their guidance. So I found that to be quite interesting. But we'll talk about how they did on the rundown.
Yeah, they also have that Cerna, the healthcare portion that was also light on numbers across the board. So pretty big move here, guys. Not a stock that we typically see down more than 9%.
Not at all. I mean, the funny thing about Oracle is the big moving days, at least the last couple of times around, have been to the downside. Generally speaking, it's been in an upward trend, but you can sort of see all the outlier type of days have been red days on Oracle. I don't think I'm telling anybody anything new that 100 is support. It's a psychological level. It had all kinds of support at that price going back into late October. Well, I guess it was more like the entire month of October or half the month of October. So I think you could see that today. The good news for Oracle is, I mean, their profit level numbers weren't that bad, and we'll get into a little bit more in the rundown, but you're going to be, if you get to 100, you're down 10%. That means you've got a major cap stock, which is SSR, short sell restricted, and it's a company that there's people that like it and it can get picked up, and generally speaking, it finds a bid somewhere. Like, it's not the kind of stock that usually would free fall like 20%, 25%. Like, this isn't like Lucid, for example. I only say Lucid because aftermarket, Lucid and Oracle were the things that are moving. Lucid losing its CFO overnight there. But 100 level, it'll be SSR if it gets there. I'd look for the SSR bounce. That means short sell restricted. You can only, once it's short sell restricted, you can only remove liquidity from the bid, which would be, for anyone that's sort of tuning in, like what you need to happen is if I wanted to short by hitting the bid and taking it lower, anybody once it goes SSR, the last tick on the tape has to be green. It has to be an uptick. So it's the old uptick rule, which when I started out was uniform across all stocks on the NASDAQ. But at least for now, we're going to have to wait for it to open up, look at that 10% down. Whether it bounces off 100 even, maybe a 101 or a 102, it's possible even a 103. Down there, I'm looking for an SSR bounce. The short level that I liked, we talked about in the afternoon show, once it couldn't hold the 108 level, I would look back at that level. That's a significant price for me. I'm not trading it anywhere else. On earnings, it's got to be a specific setup or specific prices, or I'm just going to sit it out. SSR bounce is a specific setup. 108 is a specific price area. If it got up there, I would look for a fade.
Yeah, I like the fact that we kind of we're showing a little bit of a pattern with earnings. I would say just if you take into consideration the past two earnings, including today's, we are coming off of a little bit of a double top, if you want to call it, that 127.50 previous earnings before today. We did a strong quadunk off of that, kind of marking out this level of strong selling at that 127, and coming into this round of earnings, we're getting a little bit more of the same, bit of continuation to two disappointing earnings reports in a row there. And yeah, definitely, Neil, that 100 level looking quite interesting as well. Let's see what we do. We're kind of just holding on to this earnings reaction lows right here, so I think that's something to go off of. But yeah, definitely, if we do kind of continue this selling to the downside, that 100 will definitely be interesting to me.
The individual crypto stocks here moving around with Bitcoin this morning as well. Hut 8, there was a positive note on Hut 8 back to the upside here this morning. I just saw it bouncing off $9 there. There was some volume that came in. Not a ton of it. I mean, we talked about Coinbase a little bit. Both Mara and Riot still positive on the day as I'm speaking right now. Don't look now, Sharif. The S&P just went red.
Yeah, I know. It's been fluctuating. I've been keeping my eye on the NASDAQ. We'll have to see. I mean, obviously, I hate to keep calling Bitcoin a speculative asset, but it really depends on how you're looking at it. Interest rates have direct correlation with these speculative type assets. The more that interest rates come down, the better they typically do. You know, with an an expected print today, you kind of just wonder how Bitcoin is going to react to this. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, so far so good. I mean, it's holding up a little bit better than the overall market. To the downside, here's Hasbro down 4%. They're going to they announced some cost-cutting job cuts across the board. I think more of an interesting angle this morning is going to be some of these big tech stocks. Netflix holding up a little bit better than the rest. There was a note I was reading this morning going into the next few years, suggesting that Netflix will fare a little bit better than Disney Plus on the ad revenue side of things. So, I mean, here's the market back to session lows. Here's Netflix trying to take out day highs up 1%.
Yeah, and people spend more time watching Netflix, and if you do that, then and you have their ad-supported tier, they generate more money off you. Number one. Number two, I think because they held out for so long, they didn't have an ad tier, and they have so many users, they're actually able to charge more for advertising than some of their other competitors. So that's helping, obviously, their profit margins. It's a good look, and they were up big yesterday, Brendo.
Yeah, Disney, on the other hand, dead flat right now, no volume whatsoever. So I think it was 50%. The note I was looking at this morning was suggesting 50% growth in the ad revenue for Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix key level here. I mean, obviously where it closed matters, and that's right at 460, but 460 a key level. I think if it's above that, market's looking relatively weak. You put this into the strong bucket above that 460. Whether or not it can make a push into 475, that would be the question. So if Netflix is your cup of tea, I don't think it's that complicated. The market is sort of fading off 16.55 a little bit. So, this is definitely in the relative strength bucket. If the market catches a bit of a bid, this looks like it's something above that 460. I wanted to get to this Adtx though, and just preface this by, when I look this up on Trade Ideas, I'm just going to show you because this is ridiculous. I see a 237,000 float for Adtx. It's done over 3 million shares, and this was a gap up and just absolutely faded pretty much everything just last week. But the breakout is pretty clean here off the $4 level, almost into a double up at 8. Just be careful. Like I wouldn't be jumping at the chomping at the bit to try to either chase these highs unless it takes out and has bidders above $8, or trying to fade this with that kind of a float. That is super tiny, and it's very likely it'll be a halt candidate off of the open. If I say it's a $4 breakout and I don't have levels on it and $8 was resistance, then I usually will just look to see if it catches a bid at 6 on a pullback. To keep it very simple. And if it can consolidate where you can risk 30, 40, 50 cents off it, that's a better way to get in. Then you can hold some for the ride. But I expect this thing's going to halt at the open the way it's already moving.
Yeah, that's pretty wild there. 200K float. Yeah, it does seem absolutely wrong, but if that's the case, like that's super easily manipulable. It's like $7, 200K float. You can easily move that around with like 1.4. So it's just like, yeah, definitely got to stay wary. And something to note, I think, as well, Neil, is that yeah, last Thursday it did get some serious volume and a nice move in the pre-market, and it kind of did this move. So maybe a potential liquidity trap, because that's only about 2 weeks ago, and ending of November. So I think that if it can somehow get past this 10, we might get a little spicy there. But who knows? I don't really like to kind of delve into these too much. But yeah, that 200K float with doing what you said, 3 million volume, almost 2 million.
3.5 already.
3.5 already. So yeah, that's pretty wild, man.
Yeah, it's a biotech company. They're acquiring EVFM on the OTC market. Looks like an all-stock deal. So EVOFM Biosciences, which is EVFM, again, on OTC, being acquired by Adtx. Let's get some analyst moves here. Dara has that over at the screen.
There's some interesting ones here today, including BlackRock here getting an upgrade from Exane BNP Paribas. We also have Fubo trading a bit higher pre-market after getting an upgrade from Cantor Fitzgerald. Boeing, definitely been one to watch since the Dubai Air Show a few weeks ago, getting an upgrade here from William Blair. And Crocs, last but not least, getting an upgrade from BofA Securities. For downgrades, pretty interesting as well. We have Airbnb and Expedia both getting downgrades from Barclays. Expedia is interesting because Barclays actually raised the price target despite the downgrade. We also have Illumina getting a downgrade from BofA Securities. And last but not least, CDW with a downgrade from Morgan Stanley, guys.
You saw Crocs with the upgrade there. We had a good conversation this morning about sport mode and Crocs. We had to educate Ram about what sport mode was. What? It was you we had to educate, Ram. You're the one. What? It was. Sport mode, of course, well, you guys know what it is, but Crocs, I like Crocs. I'm not going to hate on them. The stock, meh, not so much. It's Boeing. If you look at that list, I'm going to make a guess that some people are interested in Fubo. A lot of people are probably interested in Boeing. Boeing was on a tear yesterday, and it was pretty clean. Even at the end of the day, like right into the close, look at what it did off 246. Now, there are levels and there are levels. We mentioned the 246 because I thought if 246 couldn't hold and the market pulled back, you'd have a couple of dollars to the downside. But when this thing held, you saw it ramp up right on the imbalances, a nice $2.50 move there into the close. So 246 is your key level today on Boeing. As I said, it's been stair-stepping to the upside. 250 is obviously a psychological level. But if it comes back down in here to 46, I'd expect that's the key price. Now, key price is working both ways. The market wants to go down. If you can't hold 46, there's room to the downside. I still believe that. But that is an obvious key level. You saw the interaction off of that price going into the close and throughout the day. And that's definitely a key one. Oh, and everybody, this time, well, okay, yes, Randy, appreciated.
I'm okay.
Don't
I
go
got mine
anywhere.
right here. Thank
You know what I'm going to do right now? Of course I am. Everybody in the Trader TV family, let's all wish Randy a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Randy.
I'm old.
You're not old. You're as young as you feel, brother. I guess he still feels. I don't know. But look, Randy obviously has been around for. Randy's been with the company for, longer than I have. He's been around for a very long time. It's like family around here. He definitely keeps it light and keeps it fun, so appreciate everybody in the chat. And he's a super nice guy. You see coming around.
Guy, yeah.
He drops mad knowledge when it comes to autos, EV, not just EVs in general. The guy knows his cars, man, and it's not.
Great fisherman as well.
He's a great fisherman. You ice fish too, don't you?
No,
Somebody,
not really.
who was talking about ice fishing yesterday?
It's probably Randy.
No, somebody else was talking about ice fishing yesterday. Okay,
maybe
it was
yeah.
Sharif.
Sharif did ask me yesterday if I go ice fishing. Yeah.
Fish, because he's so adept at fishing. So I was like, it's a
I
natural.
wouldn't say adept, but like I like to fish. Let's say, that's my extent.
Adept. I am not adept at fishing, but you know what I'm really good at while fishing? It's just you got to get the rhythm going. It's all about rhythm, and you get the rhythm going, and that's all that matters. Whether you catch anything, that's neither here nor there. That's not my thing, but certainly I can enjoy it. The whole point of, I think, why people like fishing, it's you go out with some friends, you get some good conversation, you have a couple of brews. It's very relaxing.
Yeah, it's kind of partially the experience, partially the process, and it's just like, whether you catch some or not, that's not really the purpose.
Let's cash some levels and some key prices and some good trades and go fishing at the desk for more ideas.
We're 6.5%. We were just going through some of these numbers on this inflation data that just came out. Rent specifically, so not necessarily housing or home prices, but rent specifically up 6.9%. Restaurant costs 5.3%. Personal care 5.2%. All items combined, then the number that we saw, 3.1%. Groceries, another 1.7%. I think it's about 10% in this country. But you were making the comment, fuel prices specifically down. I mean, I saw this morning again, it was down again.
Yeah.
24% downside for oil.
I filled up 141.5, Brendan.
Yeah.
Do you know how happy I was? No, but in all seriousness, like even stateside, what I'm hearing right now is that most states it's sub $3 a gallon. And so you'll recall that at its peak, it was above $5 a gallon in some places, especially California, where the tax is outrageous there. But interesting look, Brendo. Again, I have some suspicion about that rent figure, just from what I've heard about the lagging effect of what they factor into the shelter. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's a high number.
Yeah, they adjusted. on a backdated basis as well, so they'll probably have a different one coming up next month. I'm just sitting here watching oil, speaking of, just broke through $70 like it didn't even matter. So 2% already downside right now for crude oil. Let's get a look at the overall market to kick things off here at 9 o'clock. We're dead flat on the NASDAQ. Sharif's going to do that for us.
All right, guys, new contract, okay? I mentioned this yesterday. We are in the March 13th contract now, so any levels that I talk about from here on in are for the March 13th contract. Yesterday, we closed at 46.78. The algo spike this morning took us to almost 4,700, Fabian. 4,700. 46.95 was the high. I'm going to go ahead and say look for a support level if we continue to trend down at that 46.50. That's where the obvious resistance level was for some time. Look for that to flip as support. Obviously, resistance 4,700.
All right, let's get into everything else that you need to know here to kick things off on a Tuesday morning again. Two-day Fed meeting underway this morning, and then we'll get the Fed decision coming up tomorrow. Watchlist.tradertv.live gets you that. You just need an email address, and then it shows up for free every single day. Yeah, we had 8% on the watch list. It's more than that now. 9.14. We just bounced off that aftermarket low in the pre-market, 103.5, back to the upside a little bit. But pretty ugly here as far as Oracle's report is concerned. Lots of question marks in regards to the forecast and light demand going forward.
Yes, exactly. Well said, Brendo. I mean, they beat on the bottom line, but they missed on the top line. So they were able to shore up expenses to increase earnings. Net income increased, believe it or not, 44% year over year. Revenue only grew 5% year over year. That was below analyst expectations. Cloud revenue specifically grew 12%. Services revenue was a miss as well. The guidance is a little suspicious. They're looking for 6 to 8% revenue growth. The street was looking for 7.6, so on the higher end of that range. And like I said, Elon Musk's XAI is now a client or a customer of Oracle, but they want more compute, and Oracle doesn't have it quite yet.
Yeah, you got to go all the way back to, October, late October, and then early October. The last time we were down here. I mean, this stock had made a nice move back to 115, 116, but gives it all back here pretty quick, guys.
Yeah, a little bit quick. We'd mentioned there was some trouble and some selling at this stock at the 118 level, and that if you didn't find a way to clear that out, it's going to be hard for it to be bullish. When you have that kind of accumulation and resistance, like you either break that level on the news or on the event, or you're looking at a down day. The problem with when you're a day trader is there's not much you can do. Like if you're a swing trader, in theory, you could try to short that level with a stop in the aftermarket or something along those lines. You could play some options, but if you're day trading, you just got to come in the next day and make the trade, whatever it might be. So 108, I mentioned this as a possible bounce turn spot. That's simply because on the way up from 100, difficult to see, but when it got to 110, it pulled back. It had a key level in at 108 on that particular day. Trust me when I tell you it did. It absolutely did. And I just want to look for that level if it can bounce as a first short. Other than that, I think the 100 level speaks for itself. It's going to be, if it breaks the current low at 103, it will be 10% down. When a stock like this is 10% down, I'm looking at every even dollar for a potential setup on a bounce, for an SSR bounce. That can manifest two ways. Either just it comes into that level, I see it bounce off, ones to tens or something like that, holds a higher low, jump in with a stop at the even, or it's a false break through the even dollar level. Maybe it only goes 10, 15, 30 cents, not a gigantic amount, is able to regain the even dollar level, holds a higher low, then you go long with a stop at that bottom. It's a very specific setup that tries to get in on the bounce, not predict the bottom and sit in front of it, but more look for it to bounce off a level first once it's 10% down, and then take that first higher low available. Thank you very much, Randy. He just brought, this is, it's not really like a fritter. I don't know what we call these, but it's like a little apple.
It's like a Danish.
Pastry here. Somebody help, what the hell are these called again? What do we call these again? Anyways, I don't know if it's a cruller. Thanks, Fabian, but either way, it looks delicious. Thank you very much, Randy. Appreciate it. Sometimes we get good pastries, and everyone around here knows that I am a slave for good pastry. I won't eat it right now, but whatever. This is going to be gone before the open, so
Nice.
I'm lying if I say something else.
Yeah, so Oracle, yeah, we kind of talked about some of those levels earlier. 100, definitely interesting, like we said before. But yeah, that this consolidation high just underneath that 108 that Neil just pointed out, you can see that it's already kind of struggling to get to that 108 off of the initial reaction bounce there, 107.40s right here. So I think this range will be interesting to kind of work with, to watch as well. And then when you do look left, you can just see that where does resistance kind of come in and around this 108, this 107.5 area where we have seen sellers kind of step in the after hours off the earnings. And if you do look back a little bit, yeah, there are some consolidation levels around along the way. But something about Friday, October 20th, right here, you can see some strong selling action happening in and around these same prices as well. So maybe a little bit of confluence with that case scenario. But yeah, a lot of consolidation underneath as well. So it will definitely be interesting to see what this ticker does. A little bit of a downtrend happening off of this earnings reaction as well.
I could crush that Kobayashi guy if it was pastries. Or what's the guy? It's not Kobayashi. That's the guy from Usual Suspects. What's the eating contest dude, or the Joey whatever his name is? If it's not hot dogs, Joey Chestnut. I'll tell you what's up. Like those guys can eat a lot of like hot dogs and stuff. But you throw a pastry in front, and I'm standing up. I'm standing up next to anybody, throwing down like an apple pastry. Whether or not that's called a Danish or a turnover or a fritter, it doesn't really matter. I love them. I can eat them fast. That was absolutely.
Oh, where'd it go?
Oh, come on. You've been here long enough to know it's not going to last.
I literally look over.
Let's be
I
real
look
for
back.
a second. Have you ever seen that
gone.
happen where when Sean's talking, I don't finish it during the time that he's talking when the camera's off of me?
Fair enough.
It's down to a science up in here, guys.
All right, just looking at Airbnb back to the downside today. This is another one that's had quite the move. In the month of November, back to 144, 144 and a half even. A couple of analyst notes. I mean, I was just seeing, I put downgrade on the board there on the screen, but there's actually a couple going either direction here. So, I mean, take it for what it is. It is downside this morning to the tune of 2.4%, but I mean, it's another strong stock.
Yeah, look, Brendo, I have my reservations about this. But look, with respect to Barclays, what they did, they downgraded Airbnb with a price target of $100 from $135. Hey, Fabian. No, but my reservations about this stock are based upon what major cities are doing. They're cracking down, on Airbnbs to bring down shelter inflation. We saw the thing with New York. Observers to that are San Francisco, Los Angeles, Miami, and I guarantee you Toronto as well. So I feel that puts pressure on their supply. So we'll have to wait and see how this one does in the next year or two. Lower highs though on the daily chart, Brendo.
Was there a punchline there?
I guess.
I missed it.
He's
Come on. That's a layup. Airbnb. I have my reservations about the stock. Then he doubled down on reservations. Oh, like you didn't actually mean that pun? First of all, don't fail. I thought it was a great pun. I thought it was good. So we hit the joke drums or whatever the heck that means. Hard at work, it's something else, and I can't tell what it is. But then she's like buried in work right now. Airbnb. So you said something there, Sharif, the lower highs in the daily chart. There they are. This is actually, I took more than 1 second to draw this trend line this morning, and I made sure I hit save because I'm like, ooh, that actually looks really good. But the lower highs are in. It was a good run into this level. Look at the clean bounce off the 50 and 200 to break it out, and then make the reversal when it hit the trend line and fail it. Now that's, to me, a little bit of a reverse setup. A couple of places to look at. Previous support to resistance, 142 and a quarter. 138 it needs to hold on. This is the other key price to watch today. So resistance, breakout, support, and then yesterday we just sort of flew and tried to make that break of the trend line to the upside. If it can't hold 138, underneath that, look short. Pretty simple. Look trend short, could see 135, could see 132. It's down 2.5%, but the market goes really red. That's a key price level. I am not fighting this thing if it falls underneath that price. If it holds it, then the short has to be somewhere else on Airbnb. So the 138 is going to be the key for me on this name. Down 2.5%. I don't have as many reservations about the stock in the long run. I think the short run is a concern, though.
Yeah, I always find it a little interesting in tinfoil hat that some of these strong upgrades and downgrades come in at an interesting technical level on these charts. But yeah, that 145 rejection happening yesterday, pretty much coming in off that downgrade. I think if we don't hold this uptrend that we have been having since earnings on Airbnb, then yeah, I think the short down to some of these previous levels where we did use them as resistance and support will definitely be interesting. This very, very clear level right here at that 125. Pretty sure we're not going to get all the way down there today, but I think that just some of these closer levels at 135 and some of these highs from earlier in the past couple of weeks may be coming into play as well. We have been uptrending quite significantly since earnings off of some strong consolidations.
All right, crypto trying to hold up here. Individual stocks a little bit positive as well, 1.7% here for Hut 8. There was positive news on a natural gas agreement that they were involved with. They were trying to set up a more environmentally friendly power version for mining purposes, but a little bit of a bump here. $9 key level though for Hut 8. I mean, there's Coinbase we can look at. BTC is actually not doing a heck of a lot. There was a move initially on the 8:30 number this morning, but we're back to basically flat here.
This is a Canadian company, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
In
Because I was just seeing here they got approval from in Ontario. Very interesting, like I talked about on the earlier in the show with respect to interest rates and how CPI affects interest rates and the effect that interest rates have on the more speculative assets like BTC, Ethereum, etc. So we'll see what they're doing right now. We're already 2 1/3 up for Bitcoin, 1% for Ethereum. I should mention MicroStrategy's got an upgrade yesterday though from BTIG, moving that bad boy up to $690. So it's been decent. Nothing really bad to say so far.
Yeah, this is 15 minutes here on Bitcoin. So we had that big move down going into Monday's session, then today starting about here. Pretty quiet, not a heck of a lot of reaction. I mean, we did test 42,000 on CPI, but just hanging out here.
Thank you very much. And for anyone, if you're having audio issues, I think like some people are reporting it. I actually had to refresh my stream just now. And so everyone, if you haven't refreshed the stream and you're having issues, then just try refreshing the stream. I think that might help it. But we appreciate everybody for letting us know. Obviously, we strive to do the best here, but internet's the internet, YouTube's YouTube. We do our best here. So try that refresh. If it doesn't work, just know that we're always all over it. But it seems like that's going to work great. We talked Coinbase. I'll go back to it in a second, but I wanted to get to tomorrow as well. Now it's up a percentage point, but if we fail that 14.25 area on Bitcoin, just want to highlight here, okay, this is not going to be as clean, but where we rejected in the early morning was about 1535 to 1540, let's call it. You can see it's been a key level all the way through. Now you're pulling back off this level already. If we were to test higher, that's a level that needs to break, I think, today for it to go green. So 14.25 fails. I think Mara into that 1535, 1540 area looks like that's the level to short. Obviously, it can be a long above that price, and then eyeballs on the 14 even dollar level as a big support. So it's about a 10% range, I think, for this. So it can definitely move today, but if you see the top of that, I would look for some fades. It's similar with Coinbase. Similar with Coinbase here, with the 136 level being the key support level for coin. The last couple of days, and of course I mentioned this as Thursday's close, Friday's support, yesterday's support as well. If there's a fade that isn't obvious at 148, it would have to be something off of this 142.5, that top. So I think that can set up in a very similar way. It's just not as clean where that top is on Coinbase. So you really need to see that set up perfectly. I think that 15.35 sets up a little more cleanly on Mara there.
Yeah, so I was reading the chat earlier while we were covering Bitcoin. I forget who it was. Somebody was like, "There's going to be a day when you guys talk about CLSK before you guys talk about Mara and Riot." I was like, "All right, we've talked about Mara, Riot, Coin, and Bitcoin as well." So we can take a quick look at CleanSpark here as well. Again, another Bitcoin miner as well, and a nice strong action off of its earnings earlier this month. December 1st was day one of earnings, day one of the first day traded after the earnings report there, and we've held above this level quite strongly. But similar kind of sentiment to the other tickers that follow Bitcoin yesterday. A bit of a fade off of some of these highs. This 10 level coming in as a bit of resistance there, but something that I like as well is this kind of consolidation low. We've been consolidating in and around this $9 area since earnings, and if some of these miners, including Bitcoin, might be taking a little bit of a pullback, I think this $8 level just right there, the consolidation low, might be an interesting place to watch for some interesting price action.
Oh, man. All right. Netflix and Disney here. Positive note for Netflix, not so much for Disney. Suggesting that Netflix will surpass Disney as far as the ad tier battle goes when it comes to attracting ad revenue going into 2024. Saying that the password sharing crackdown is coming into play as well more and more. Did you have anyone that was sharing your Netflix?
No. Of course not, friendo.
Oh, what was I going to say? No, I mean, it's in this country, we actually got it before the US, so it's been a while, but I think it's gotten to a point where you could add an additional account for like $6.99 or $7.99. That is now going up as well, the additions. Going to be, I think, to $9.99 in this country, but the ad tier specifically favoring Netflix going into 2024, long story short.
Yeah, it's an interesting report here from Insider Intelligence. They're basically suggesting that we're going to have a 50% increase in ad revenue for Netflix next year. Compare that to the 16.1 that they're estimating for Disney. Now, Disney will finish up the year with about $100 million more in ad revenue than Netflix, but that is going to be short-lived, according to this report. In addition to that, we're seeing Netflix kind of nudge people towards the ad tier by increasing the non-commercial packages to higher prices, kind of trying to incentivize people to get onto their ad tier, because the more you watch on their platform, the more they make on the ad tier, whereas that's not the same for the commercial plans. It doesn't really matter how much you watch, Brendo.
Yeah.
They're also able to charge more for advertising because of all the pent-up demand that advertisers have had wanting to advertise on Netflix. So it's been a good look for them, and it was up again, like I said, big yesterday.
In this country, we have these crazy internet deals where they'll give you a discounted price for 2 years or a discounted price for a year, I think they're only doing now. So that term for me has just come to an end. So I was looking around to negotiate over the weekend to see what's out there as far as the deal is concerned.
And what'd you find?
I found that I actually had Disney Plus as a part of my current deal with Rogers. I had no idea. I had no idea.
That.
I didn't use it once. But anyway.
That's just a gigantic fail, Disney. Like, the fact that that's even true just tells you everything you need to know about the failures that they've had. Like, that's ridiculous, because there's actually some stuff on there I know Brendan would probably enjoy, and then what happens is a person like that's never going to re-up because you're like, I had it, didn't even watch anything. We use Netflix so much that you have like, there's my login, there's Neil, there's Rebecca, my wife, and then the other login is called Kids. And when my daughter wants to watch something, she doesn't say put on Netflix, she just says put on Kids. I'm like, what, do you want us to go to like Amazon Prime Kids? Or do you want us to go to Disney? She's like, no, Kids. I'm like, oh, you want Netflix. She loves Netflix. And Netflix, Squid Game was amazing. I won't spoil it for anybody, but I thought even the game show, not just the show, I thought that was fantastic. They keep coming up with better. I think the ad tier was a good move for them. But for this trade today, 460, we mentioned this before, 460 resistance into support. It looks like along above there. The futures are trying to find their way after going red there on the ES and actually back into flat on the NASDAQ. But as long as Netflix can hold on to 460, I think that one looks pretty good. We're going to get to some big cap names as well after this, but I know one streaming name that you might be interested in, you might be mentioning at some point there. Obi?
Yeah, no, I think along something worth mentioning along with Netflix and Disney is the other player in the streaming game there. So that's definitely Amazon right here. So yeah, Amazon kind of it's been in a pretty consolidative range there, as you can see, in and around. Look at these highs kind of coming in at these same areas, and then supports coming in and around these same areas as well. So a little bit of price compression and consolidation after we've broken broken out of this previous kind of trend level here. We were here when this happened, and we've been pretty much buying up all the dips before the trend started going sideways and consolidating here on Amazon. So I think that'd be an interesting look if one of these streaming services gets an outlier news event or a move. I think that you can sometimes be looking for sentiment in and along the other streaming names as well. Amazon being a strong player in that sector as alongside Netflix and Disney.
All right. Yeah, we're just talking about the Ford just announcing more production cuts for the F-150 Lightning. So, yeah, that deal didn't work out too well, I don't think, for UAW workers anyways. 3% right now, pushing 3% for oil. So it's been straight southbound since 8:30 for oil. I haven't seen anything as far as an actual news catalyst for that, but there's heavy volume behind that as well. For crude. So watch some energy stocks. We're going to mention just tech in general to wrap things up here because of what happened yesterday. If you missed it, the Mag 7, if you want to call them that, down significantly. It was 1 to 2.5%, 3% across the board for all of them, when overall the rest of the NASDAQ specifically was actually relatively strong. If you looked into it midway through the afternoon yesterday, it was some of the consumer names.
Yeah.
If anyone hasn't looked in a while, Pepsi, those types of names, Pepsi's on the NASDAQ. So those types of discretionary stocks were higher. Huge rotation, though, out of what has been doing the heavy lifting into some other stocks.
Yeah, if you guys want a better picture of what Brendo's describing, overlay the SPY on the RSP. Watch how better the equal-weighted S&P 500 ETF did yesterday versus the market cap-weighted, the cap-weighted one. It's been it was really outperforming. And this is something we've been looking for a while. How long is the Mag 7 going to be, leading the charge on these indexes? It's literally been doing it all year. So, towards the end of the year, you think that there's going to be some more rotation coming in as money comes from the sideline into the market.
And that's the key. Worth a note, if anyone is going through this couple of weeks here for the first time as far as participating in the overall market, there will be moves happen before the end of the year as some positioning takes place that you will say, what is going on? This doesn't make any sense. So whether or not this was one of them yesterday, we'll see. But we are downside here again today, not anywhere near what yesterday was like, but Apple anyways, 0.3 negative so far.
So, look, yesterday was a unique sort of event because a lot of times when you see these big spikes at the open, as Brendan mentioned, and they happen on the Mag 7, it's actually at 9:30 to 9:35, and it'd be easy to look at the charts of, say, Google and say that's what happened. But this move culminated in a bottom at 9:30. It had already fallen off $1.50, so it was like 1% and change. Right at that open to the downside. And now this is obviously going to be a key level for clear reasons. When you make a liquidity bottom like that, 130, 150, you do, of course, have the ongoing court action that they have. They just took a bit of a hit when it comes to the Epic Games as well. So they're down 1% to begin with. I don't know if you see a retest of the close price, which is where this dumped off. I think that's an easy spot to look sell. But if we do not hold on to 130, 150 on Alphabet here, then I can't see a reason why it's not a short underneath that price. Now, ideally, I want to pop and fade on Google. What was just pointed out as well, you're going to get into Apple. That was a good short. I still like Apple at key levels, but Microsoft is going from Google to the other name here. Microsoft is a little bit stronger. Ooh, I hate that chart. Let's go back to the 3-minute. It's a little bit better. Microsoft a little bit stronger because it regained that price where everything flushed at 370, kind of closed above the 370 level, and now you're failing the close price. So, Softy joins the party underneath 370 and has room to go back down into that liquidity zone at 366. That actually sets it up for, heck, you'd have to drop 1% at the open. That gives you a liquidity bottom that you can chew into when it comes to Microsoft. So look, I like Google for that short. If it can't hold on to 130, 150, 133 for sure, I like it short. And then I want to jump over to AMD because I'm just going to get them all out there at once. AMD, you know what the key level was. Join the trend, don't fight it. I joined it at 132 because that was the last level I shorted and then found support at the previous resistance level. If 132 can hold, I think AMD's got room to the top. I thought 135 would be resistance to fade in front of it. That's what I put in my note out this morning. It doesn't matter. CPI hit and we didn't go up into that level. We came down off of it. So I don't know if we get a short off that level up there in 135. I think it's more likely we test 32. And just like yesterday, when I was willing to short it and it broke above, I flipped to going long in front of that same key level. Got to have the same mental agility when it comes to the 32 to the downside with AMD. This is a stock that has had a fantastic run. This is a stock which just broke out the top, went a couple of dollars, and then resisted. If it immediately fails that 132 top from back in June, it doesn't take much for it to pull back into the 130 level. That's not even that big of a pullback. So you have to have some agility around that 132 level for advanced micro devices.
Yeah, I think that 135 was some interesting price action yesterday. We saw how heavy it kind of stacked up on the initial test, and it kind of melted right back up into those areas. But yeah, Apple strong sell-off yesterday, and then we're coming into the lower end of this consolidation range, opening up today underneath this 193.5. But I think something to note is that every time or not every time, it's only done it about 3 times so far right now. We can see that we've been in this consolidation at mid to late of November right here underneath this 192. I think 192 was a decent place to look for sellers as they kept on showing up again and again. Obviously not as clean, but now that we've stepped up, take a look at that 192. That 192 is now become resistance turn support, as when we do distinctly get past that level, you can see the bid kind of coming in. Even with the strong sell yesterday, you pretty much reclaim this consolidation from before above that 192. So coming in today, again, with an as expected CPI, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I think something to watch out for is this 192 because as of the past 2 weeks, since December 5th, every time we do come into this level, it's been catching a strong bid there on Apple, and I think we covered pretty much all the majority of the big techs there, right, Neil? I don't think we talked about Nvidia though.
The ones I think in the most play. Would you write about Nvidia? Good point.
Yeah, so Nvidia as well, kind of along the lines of AMD, the one of the leaders of the semis right here. But yeah, it's been catching a little bit of a fade post earnings. You can see that we are kind of holding underneath this earnings reaction. You can see this wide ranging candle off of earnings, and every time we have kind of come up into that earning reaction low, we've been selling off over and over. But yeah, something to consider there. Again, market direction I think will dictate where this can potentially go today.
No questions about it. That's a good one for Nvidia too. Got to have that one on watch. I want to throw one more out there for you. You might have remembered something happening on Friday with Uber. I can't imagine what it might be. It's a big deal. Oh yeah, that's right. It's going into the S&P 500. Clearly, a good portion of that is baked in here. That's the daily chart for you, so not much of a surprise. But it's been a drop and pop, drop and pop, drop and pop, drop and pop. Well, it's already dropping this morning. This is a very different setup from what it's been doing. This is the biggest pullback that it's had. Some key levels, obviously 62, 61.5, and 60, and 61 even. All 3 of those, I would look for opportunities to go pop. Drop and then pop. Of course, with 2 minutes to go, we got Oracle on watch in that $100 level. Actually just saw Google trying to break down as well, that 131.50 level on Google. But I want to make sure we can give you an early look at the imbalances. 128 hits. Now, today is not the day that you're going to get the really big imbalances. On Friday, we're clearly expecting there to be a big event. Not really seeing anything too crazy on here. Fubo's a small buy at 330,000. Oracle's a sell for 300,000. Those are probably the names you're interested in. Everything else is like penny stocks up here. That bets is there every day. Yeah, not really too much. It's just that small sell on Oracle for a couple of 100,000 shares is what's going to end up standing out. So we'll make sure if anything does pop off on this board in the next minute or two, I'll let you guys know. But there we go. Uber already heading back into the downside. So it doesn't. I'm not just going to sit in front of the bid, but I'm looking for the first setup at a 50-cent level that holds the bid to look good for me to jump into that dip buy. Google, as mentioned, that 131.50. We'll probably test that right away off the open. Shout out to Yatube mentioning Intel. If I wasn't looking at AMD, Intel 45. I don't think we see 45 on Intel. Sometimes if it wasn't for CPI, there's a chance I would have shorted this On the economic number, though, is not usually one I want to take a fill like that. But the 45 level has been the resistance on Intel. I don't know if we get a shot at that. If it stair steps down, I just find a place to join the trend with those steps. So AMD is fighting that 132. I think we're going to get that test right away at the open. We already talked about Coinbase as part of the plan. Coinbase going up as the market tends to head, is heading to the downside. Just checking in on Bitcoin. Still flat, still under 42,000. So I would look at yesterday's high, and if it breaks that, I probably have to sit that out and wait for like the high 140s. That's been the short zone. We got 20 seconds to go. It's Tuesday. It's going to be a wild one. It's pre-Fed day, it's CPI day, and it's Oracle Woodshed day as well. Adara is on the bell as the countdown did not just work, so it's going to be late now. There we go. We hit it a second time, but it's more like 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ring it now, Adara. And there we go. The market is open almost instantly. Oracle just ticked lower down into 103. Now it looks like that one, no, it's still battling the bid here. You're seeing Coinbase go to the upside. AMD does not want to hold underneath that 132 level. So for now, it is catching a bit of a bid. Google as well trying to catch a bid off of the open. Do not want to rush. Google holding on to 131.50. Wow, not just holding, it's up $1 off that 131.50. So that turns out to be a pretty key level for Google. AMD still battling 132. I need to see some buyers step in here. Otherwise, this could be a bit of a failure for AMD. It's Google's the one that's flying right now.
Yeah, some really strong strength off of some of those lows on in the pre-market there. I'm watching that Amazon. I had that 145 kind of mark. That level comes in right off the open. Maybe not even right off the open. Right, you get a dip off the imbal at 925, right off the 145, and now we're about 1.5 points to the upside. So I guess you know what? I got to be a little bit more patient. I don't even know if that level is going to come right back in, but that 145, like I've been mentioning, has been a great place to work with, and it gives it to you in the pre-market and rips up about almost 2 points right off the open. So that's a missed trade. That's perfectly fine. I'm just going to be waiting, patiently waiting for that next trade. I think that the strength in some of these markets or some of these equities is definitely playing a part here. But I'm also seeing that the ES and the SPY is kind of fading to the downside, relatively different than Softy and Alphabet, Amazon as well. So let's see how far this bid kind of goes there. Can't really get past that pre-market high there on Amazon underneath that 147. So a little bit of selling coming in right off the bat. No, I didn't get anything on Amazon yet. Like I said, I'm going to be a little bit more patient today. If you guys have been watching, I've been struggling with a little bit of over trading. So I'm just like, okay, well, you know what? The best way to combat over trading is to trade less, right, Neil? So
I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah, so
patient, more discretionary.
If I miss a trade, I miss a trade. Like,
wait for the key levels to be sure. Just a quick update here, though, guys. 133 did come into play on Alphabet, so just come over to the chart. It got into 33. I got some 75s. Then it came right to the 33 even. Tagged it. I got a fill at 95. Took some out there at 63. Now we're going to look for a shoot lower highs. I want to be in this short for the haul. But AMD might be setting up as well. So we got that Google trade. We'll ring the register in a second, but I got to move on. We did ring the register. I'll celebrate in a second because AMD just held that 132. So note, forget about this dumping off that 132 level. You're still looking relatively strong on AMD off the 132. I still think that can be a short. The other pop and fade was going to be Coinbase. Didn't quite get to yesterday's high. If you got in early, good for you on coin. It looks like that was the way to go. I decided to be a little bit patient with it. You know, patience is definitely the right call. So you waited for 133. Well, I waited for 133 area on Google. Don't know if we're going to get that chance here on Coinbase, but it's strong. It's strong off the open. I'd say it's going to give an opportunity for that fade play. And Uber was the other one we're looking right away. It doesn't get to 61.5, so it's trying to battle that 62 level. Not a ton of buying coming into that just yet. And creative. So Adtx, $200,000. So it's a 200,000 float. I don't think it's rocket science to think that it's a high halt probability. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but yeah, halted probably 5 or 10 minutes here.
Yeah, so I guess we get a little short off that 147, kind of coming in there, slowing down off that momentum. The ES and the NQ both kind of testing fresh lows there as well. So maybe a little bit of a pullback in store. I like that 62 here on Uber as well. That 62 holding relatively nicely. So potential for a setup here. I'm gonna just be a little bit more patient and see whether or not this 62 level will hold. The market is heavy in certain places, so I do want to keep that in mind. SPY quite heavy as well, coming into that 461 level. So that 62, I'm just going to be a little bit more patient just to see if it comes in. But that Amazon, that 147 is definitely a little bit of a sell area, as we kind of failed to follow through that 147 as of right now, and the market's kind of pulling back in towards new lows. And yeah, Neil, softy. We were talking about that pre-market high and pretty much rejecting that pre-market high, and a little bit of a stall underneath VWAP as well on softy.
So this one, I can talk about being patient, but I just got an entry. It's at 33s based on the tape of softy. Softy, there was the high right at the close, was like 371.75. It just tested above 372, wicked the top and started coming back in. This is one of the names that actually got back up to that flush price at the open yesterday, but I'm in a bit early on this. The market is still heading down, but remember, the market was heading up and the Mag 7 down yesterday. So the NASDAQ heading down does not necessarily mean we have to flush on the Mag 7. As a matter of fact, they just got a reload on Alphabet. So I'm going to get, you know what, I'm just getting out of this break 372. I was going to give this a couple of beats, but if it gets above that 372, I'm just going to get out of it. You are seeing a pretty big flush in the NASDAQ because the Mag 7 is not deciding to follow. AMD has strength off of that 32 level, so it ends up holding the bid there. That's obviously a good sign if you're into AMD. You know, I didn't really get into that long trade, set up the shorts first because I thought we were heading back in today, but AMD still holding up and looking like a relatively strong name. As I mentioned, I just got that reload on Alphabet. Alphabet 133 holds a second time, but that is holding on for dear life. 133.30 was the close yesterday. I think if it gets above that price, have to give up the notion that this one is going to fall. So I've already mentioned the ADTX halt for you guys. Not really looking at the open. I will get to that one. I don't think it's something that I would be trading on a day like today. Plenty enough moving on a day like today. So Google's starting to come back in. That looks okay. It's Microsoft I think I'd be more concerned about for the short. And Oracle looks like resistance at 105. There was no 100 bounce, but if you looked at the even dollar that was first, it was a 102 hold. So if this is going to hold a higher low at 103, I might look for that on Oracle here, showing some signs of strength. It is SSR. It ticked well below 10% at the open.
Yeah, so we did get kind of stopped out there on that 147. 147 does pop right back in, prints a few pennies above the dollar, and then kind of fades right back off of that 147. So that's perfectly fine. I think you know what, I do wanna stay or look kind of the same way there. But if it's gonna be a little bit messy, I'm gonna wait a little bit longer there. That 147, not a bad idea with the market kind of flushing. But if it does kind of bounce here and we catch a bit of a bid, that 147 just could blast off. Again, if we talked about the range earlier this morning. The high of the range is actually at that 148. So even though 147 has been a little bit of a level on the chart, the high of the range actually sits at that 148. So if I'm looking for strong sellers or valid sellers to come in, I think a better place might be that 147. But that 62 there, Neil, on Uber really coming in nice as it's blasting off that 62 halves testing and coming in pretty hot into yesterday's highs, 63s.
62 was it?
Was 63? Yeah, exactly. 62 was pretty solid. Shout out to the sticky note there, and shout out to some of these technical levels on the chart as well. So yeah, that 62 very, very powerful. Let's see if we can get to 63. Now again, very, very strong catalyst on this name, right? 64, I think I was looking at at being all-time highs there on Uber.
64 is correct. That's correct.
Yeah, and yesterday we came only about a point away from that level, and we're pretty much in within that same area right now of 62, 63, 64. Again, this name has been trending up pretty strongly every single day going into that S&P ad. So a very strong bid when it does come in off those dips. And oh boy, that 147 was a decent place to sell. You know what? Next trade, that's perfectly fine. We miss trades all the time, and that's nothing to really worry about. I got to get better at. I guess the stop was a little too tight. That's what it was. I think the stop was a little too tight, and I was a little too early. I got in the 70s. If I'm looking to short 147, why am I getting involved right away at the 70s? Again, if I expect the level to be a little messy.
I wouldn't necessarily say stop too tight. Sometimes it's just that could be your setup. That's your out. You can always get back into the trade.
Right.
Because I've just had tight stops on Microsoft like 2 times now, but I don't mind that. It looks like it's pretty strong. Like I got some out there 37.50 because I'm like, oh, that was in too early, and I'd mentioned that might be in too early, and I got out. And then I shorted up at 37 even, sorry, 72 even, and got out on a tight stop. It's still holding the pre-market high. So the third time in, now I'm taking it and giving it to that pre-market top level. The market is weak, but remember yesterday, it was Mag 7 down, market up. We are getting a little bit of a reverse. It's Google that's absolutely fine to the downside, but it's Softy I still like on that failure off of yesterday's highs. We're going to go to Adara, but before we do, the answer to the question to who was eating, someone asked that in the chat, it's actually Kat, not Sharif.
Yeah, Tesla weak right now. Just keep an eye on Tesla, down about 2% right now. Also down yesterday, but right now falling very strong on strong volume here, guys.
It's always on. Katrine has a lovely pastry, and you could hear the bag crackling. There it is. That's that crackle. I don't know what that is, but it looks absolutely delicious there, Katrine. And why not? The market is, I mean, it's red for now. Google looking good. Microsoft starting to come back in here. Let's see if we can't wet the beak getting out of this thing. VWAP doesn't matter here, but it matters that this is where, if it looked to be a good short area earlier, of course, I get out some at the halfway point, and then now it starts to flush. So stick with it. I mean, the shorts are working, at least for myself right now. AMD just decided to fly, though. So I can be happy about the couple of shorts that are on here, but AMD off 132 and Uber off 62. Those were longs. At the open, I was kind of thinking we'd fail that level and look for a short. It just bounced almost instantly. So arrows up if you got something that's strong. Clearly the chips are still looking so. It's 135. I said be patient. I think 135 is resistance on AMD. Kind of want to let this thing get to 135, but I might have just missed the turn there. I got 2 on, and I'm looking for something else. If you guys see anything that's setting up. I see people talking about Nvidia. That's pretty strong. Okay, Nvidia. It's going to be like that? $10 move off the open? No, I don't think I'll be shorting Nvidia on that move. We'll just chill out. Google's $1 in the money. Microsoft is actually fading. That looks a little bit dicey. If I see some selling, I think join selling would be the way to go. Is there a chip name that's worth shorting? Maybe an Intel. Okay, that goes without saying. 45 short on Intel. The next time it's at this level, I'm wetting my beak in the pre-market. It's just absolutely silly. It's too good a resistance zone to sit there and look at it without actually cashing the trade. And then it flushes off this level every single time.
Yeah, so we tried a little bit of a long, but it was a little bit of a chase there through that 134. So we just give it back. 133 coming right back in. So that 134, we saw that resistance kind of at that 135 yesterday, and AMD kind of pushed right into it from off that 132. But if it's not going to give you that 134 and have that strong sell and break that trend to the downside, I think that you gotta get out of there. I was a little too late getting too close to that 133, but I was trying to give it room around the $0.50, and that really came in with that quadunk. Again, the market's kind of heavy here, 16.4 coming in here on the NQs, as well as that 46. What is this? Yeah, 46.60 coming in on the ES as well. A little bit of a consolidation. Yesterday's highs in and around these levels as well on the ES. So if we are going to catch a little bit of a sell, I do want to step out of the way for the long, especially on a name like AMD, which kind of coincides with a lot of the large caps there. Softy kind of rejecting that 373 area from pre-market. Alphabet as well pushing down towards its pre-market lows. Amazon, oh boy, that 147 was the high, and we're testing 145.80s now. So it kind of gave you just over a point off of that level. Uber still working out perfectly fine here, as it is holding above that 62 level. Let's see how far it can get. That 133 kind of chopping and churning here on AMD. Only about 40 seconds left for that first 15-minute candle to finish printing here. Maybe this is the dip buy on top of that 133.
Speaking of finished, we got the bottom just hit on Softy. Now remember, Microsoft, it was holding above its closing price. So at the open, I'm going to play that range. We took a couple of tight stops in there and then waited for 372 to make the move down into 371. It's Google that was the better trade, obviously, looking at the 133 top on Google. But I have rules, and it wicked the bottom of the support level from yesterday. You showed itself that there were buyers down here, 130, 150. The second it bounced off that level, I got the heck out of Dodge. So again, you got to trade your book and trade your plan, and that's first step one of the plan was getting that move on Google. Successful. The fail will be not shorting 40 again on a firm. It's hard to be happy about the morning when we were trading a firm off the 40 level in the afternoon yesterday, and then I get to see it fall apart like this off the 40 level. We had a very long discussion about 40 and a firm here. So one of the things you're supposed to do is go over the names that you were trading in the afternoon and make sure that that's included in your preparation in the morning. So it's difficult for me to ever be happy about a result, regardless, good or bad, when I think I broke a major rule in preparation and I should have had a firm short at the $40 level. I didn't even mention a firm to you guys. I apologize for that. I literally wouldn't shut up about it yesterday. Airbnb is holding on to 138, so you just got to be able to move on to what's next. So the support is holding on Airbnb, no shorts under. I think this could be good to go. It's putting in a higher low. The buyers are trying to support this level. If I can get something in the 130, 150, put up 50 cents worth of risk. I literally said, look 30 to 50 cents worth of risk on my iPad, and then $3 worth of room in either direction. So that's setting up right now on Airbnb. Let's go to Adara.
Just keep an eye on Nio here. Really weak on strong volume, down about 5.5, 5.6% right now. We did get yesterday retail sales numbers for the month of November for China. Nio's slightly lower month over month, but nothing too significant here. Keep an eye on this name, guys.
Oh, wow. $7. Remember $7 on Nio? Yeah, let's just think about that. We know it's a big level. We know that's the one. So 7 even on NIO. If it gets there, I'm very likely to be looking for the long on NIO. It's just a scalp long off a level like that. And if it breaks, I'm willing to reverse it. Okay, AMD, get back to that one. The 132 is what I'm looking for here. If we can get it, I don't know if we get a chance to short 135 on AMD. Google, I do want the reload. We've already made the one trade. It's bouncing now. I got to think about VWAP, pre-market highs here for a lower high entry, or let it get all the way back up to 133 in the top, and then we can take that trade.
Yeah, so I think I attempted the long again off the 133. It's not really coming in. I think now I gotta kind of go back a little bit and take a look at the bigger picture there. That 134 was quite, that 135 yesterday was quite heavy there. So maybe a little bit of a pullback coming in on the AMD there. So I have Intel already pulled up here. Take a look at Intel, very, very heavy to the downside as well. Let's take a quick look at Nvidia. Nvidia kind of, okay, so Nvidia is blasting to the upside, that 460 to 470. So Nvidia's already done about 10 points to the upside off the open. We talk about kind of this consolidation that it's been having. Again, that we talked about that earnings reaction low in and around that 470, and we just blasted right up into this level. So coming in the past couple of weeks, these levels right here, as you can see, every time price kind of comes into these 470s, we have a strong sell to the downside every single time. So let's see whether this strength or not is met with those same sellers we've been seeing over and over again for the past couple of weeks in and around these 475s-ish area. But yeah, if Nvidia is going to start blasting like that, I think that AMD it can potentially catch a little bit of a bid. But this chop in and around this 133 is definitely a little concerning here. I did want to get long initially off of this level. We tried the 134, didn't really work. We tried the 133. It's still holding that 133 as of right now, but maybe worth a try with a little bit of a wider stop there. We did visit 132 halves on that little dip, so that is the low of this current consolidation that's happening in and around this 133. But like I said, I'm going to stay a little bit more patient. If we are selling off of highs from yesterday, sorry, what was that?
EVs are tanking. I just want, before
tanking,
we go to Adara here, not to interrupt, but EVs are tanking. Tesla made a move down, but I want to get to Rivian in a quick second. Rivian just bounced off 18 even, but here is 1835. That is a good zone. It was support. If it fails this, I'm looking for a rollover down here. And just to quickly show you guys Tesla, because Tesla also making a bit of a bounce after a down move and coming back into a previous resistance. 237 would be that resistance. Let's go to the desk with Adara.
Just looking at Hasbro here, since open, trying to climb to the high side after trading lower pre-market, following news that they're basically planning on headcount reductions for part of their strategic plan here coming up. So just keep an eye on Hasbro right now, guys.
Yes, sir. One to keep watch on for sure. I'm going to get to Intel in a second. There we go. I probably missed the first 4 cents of that move on Rivian because I flipped over to Tesla to talk about it. Enter first, talk later. It's generally a good rule. I say it out loud after it happens to remind myself because sometimes you have to remind yourself of the mistakes. So Rivian failing at a key price level. I'll try to add to it if I can at the 30s. We just showed you Tesla. Now we can calm back down, get on over to Intel. This is popping back in. Yes, it failed 45. I cannot trade 45 because it's not there. You got to forget about it. 44.35 key inflection point, but I'm looking to fade pretty much at least until you get to 43.30. This is where we joined the long on Intel yesterday and stair-stepped it to the upside. If it stair-steps down, I don't see a reason why you can't hit 43.3 if we make that move in. The NASDAQ is still slightly red on the day. If we roll over, 44.10 looks good. If it breaks 10s, I probably look for that 44.35. So sit out 25 cents or so and wait for another level. So I just entered into Rivian. I just entered into Intel here. I still like the notion of a Google short, but I don't know how well it's setting up there for me on Alphabet. It's still bouncing off 130.150. It's not really giving an obvious entry that I see. Maybe the 132 is actually holding resistance, but I'd much rather the pre-market high before I get back into that one. And I'm kind of with you on Uber. It's just a matter of getting into this long. Look at it hold the higher low here. So it's already wicked 62. If it can just manage to make the next step up, I think it has a chance to get 63, then 64, of course, being, as you mentioned, that big high on the daily.
Yeah. AMD did kind of blast off that 133, so I did chase the break of that consolidation through that 133 half. So we kind of talk about how the consolidation range was 133 half to 132 half. So yeah, we get stopped out on the initial try at that 133, but again, I'm not. I think I'm a little too hasty buying like 15, 20 pennies above the 133. If I like the 133 long, I should be sitting for dips in and around that 133 to kind of get long with that. But we get that 134 test and kind of make back some of this hold off that 134 from before. But yeah, AMD nicely pushing towards that 135 from yesterday. Let's see how far it can go. 134 holding off that 133. A little bit of size showed up right there at that 134. Let me just pull it up here on this L2 so you guys can catch some of that size as well. But yeah, so that 134 just underneath it, there was I think about 240 lots that just popped up real quick, and I think. Did they get filled? I'm not too sure here, but yeah, I think it might have just been a little bit of a potential spoofy man showing up for a little bit. But yeah, that Uber holding quite well above that 62. Again, 62 kind of a level from yesterday and from before. Holding very well as of right now. And the market kind of bouncing as well. We talk about having that tailwind off the market, and as soon as the market starts bouncing, this consolidation starts to get going off the 62 62.5. So let's see how far that can get. Oracle as well, Neil, kind of holding in and around. It hasn't really got to that 100 level. We got to a low of about 102.30s there on Oracle, and catching a little bit of a bounce back into the trend of pre-market. So let me just pull that up, and so we can take a quick gander at that. Where is, okay, so Oracle right here. And okay, so right here on, let's pull it up on a 5-minute. So you can see that we kind of failed to follow through into these lows, but the trend off of the earnings reaction is kind of down there. So just drawing out a rudimentary kind of trend line from this high to this high off the open, you can get a good idea of this trend. Now we can structure trades around a trend break or even a trend follow, but I think this is good information to kind of go off of if we're not going to be continuing back to the downside. Yeah, a little bit of a downtrend happening on Oracle there.
So very quickly here, I'm going to show you how quickly things change. I might have to jump back into this. That looks like it was a bit of a wick out. Same size, almost same price. Give me the fill. Oh, it doesn't even want to. I was just in Intel. Oh, yeah, you're sneaky. Had the entry on Intel. I showed you guys where my stop was going to be if it broke that 10. Got wicked out, tried to immediately jump back in at the same price, went to hit the bid, and it dropped a quick 10 cents. This is going to happen. This will be a fail when this ends up being like the top wick of the morning. It's actually me. Like sometimes you're off by a cent or two. That time it is actually me. I am the top wick on that move. Tried to jump back into it, but wasn't able to catch it. Unfortunately, I won't chase it too far. But Rivian is starting to work back into the downside. Just to show you, 18 is an obvious psychological level, but going to have some bids down into the low of the day on Rivian just to make sure we capture some of this. AMD is super strong, but guess what just broke down? Somebody was holding the level at 132 on Google. Well, the sellers won, and now it's pressing that 130-150. So I was wrong to wait for VWAP. I could have just shorted it in the 90s off that 132 and gone back to the place that we started, which was, that short setup off the 133 on Google. If it can't hold the 130-150, I think it's safe to short down there. But you can see 132, a key price on that 3-minute. It held for 15 minutes on the offer at exactly 132 even. So that's pretty wild. AMD wants 135 here. I think it's going to get it. Wait around for 135. If you took the 132 long, congratulations. At that point, Google was setting up for short. Microsoft set up for short. I can be angry with myself for not having that other trade, but you can't trade 5 things at the, I can't trade 5 things at the open. Generally, like once I have a couple that I'm focused on entries in, you can maybe get a third one. But that was tricky. It definitely gave you what you wanted at that 132. Again, Adara's at the desk.
Yeah, Moderna to the downside right now, down about 5.5%. Basically, the CEO saying that she's going to step down briefly to take control of the sales amid basically a push for COVID vaccine and an RSV launch. And as a result, after this, Morgan Stanley has reduced the price target for Moderna mRNA to the downside, guys.
Oh, what? What was that? I just threw in an order to stop out, and it just took me out of the position immediately. So, oh boy, AMD. That 135 coming in there on AMD potentially. No real size. Not any serious size. I'm seeing only about 17 lots on the ask there. But yesterday, I think there was a couple thousand lots sitting at that 135 potentially. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens with that 135. There's that size 64. Exactly. You see that? There's a nice 240 lots ish in the 60s that showed up. Maybe just some profit taking. We have come up from that 133, right? And the pressure is quite aggressive there. Uber kind of just still holding in and around this 62 halves as well. Market kind of coming right back up. 16.4 bounce, quite clean there on the NQ. And I had a couple levels marked out for my ES as well. And it seems like we're right there. I don't know if people saw that
on AMD on your level 2.
What's going on?
There was. Whether or not you guys saw it, there was 134.64 had a big seller on AMD. So I just jumped in front at 61, like very quickly. Obviously 135 is the big level up there. I was looking for a fade off that price. When I saw the seller, I simply, we call it shaved in front of it. You know what, it's a term that's been around for a long time and it makes a lot of sense, but literally nobody uses it except for people that were on this trading floor like 20 years ago. But that's like jumping in front of a big order by a cent or two. So shaved in front of it, it was at 64, got a fill at 61, now it's pulling back in. This is a strong stock. So if it holds the higher lows like it is, I think I want to take profit because it could be inevitable that we break out that 135. But sometimes you just rather join a seller than try and be the seller. I think that's the easy way to follow the market, but you don't always see that kind of a thing. So it was the size seller that got me in. My stop went right above it. So that 64 size was there. At my stop, I think I put in 66 in the moment, but it looks like it's already starting to bounce. It's a very gimmicky trade. So once I see some buying refresh there at the 30s, I get all of it out at 30s. So I risked about 5 cents off that seller. I was looking short in front of 135 anyways. So I was looking for an opportunity to get in, hence the second there was a seller there, just jump right in front of the seller and scalp it for the move. Rivian is showing some signs of strength here. So I do have to be worried about it taking out this local high here. It's actually 1846, kind of a random price. So we'll give about 15 cents on Rivian. I think that works. I mean, we're at 1-to-1 here at the low of the day, where I'd take one out, and then obviously 18 even would give me another leg. But the opportunity to get one out, two outs, and then suddenly it becomes a hold all the way down to 17.5. So I like giving this one a little bit of room to be able to work to said downside. But that was a good level there on AMD. Quickly in and out. That seller is not there again at 134.64. That's why you get in and out of a trade like that and don't worry about holding onto it for the moon. It's a gimmicky style trade. React fast. Let's go to the desk. It's 10 o'clock. What's happening now?
Yeah, futures pretty flat, just slightly negative right now. We do also have, just keep in mind, Janet Yellen speaking currently, so keep an eye on that. Some kind of mixed comments about inflation. We also have, lots of economic data to keep an eye on the rest of this week as well, including PPI tomorrow, and the FOMC meeting, which starts today, will conclude tomorrow with the rate decision. So keep an eye on all the economic data with regards to the market right now, guys. In terms of individual stocks moving, Nvidia continuing to the high side. U.S. Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo basically saying that Nvidia is working with the U.S. to make the chips for China, so they're pretty cooperative there. That's just something of note with regards to Nvidia. We also have Oracle now over 10% to the downside after a mixed Q2 earnings and some analyst downgrades and price target cuts there. Last but not least, Macy's continuing to the downside after a lot of strength yesterday, getting a downgrade from Citigroup with regards to the feasibility of the proposed deal. Surge Trader, brought to you by Surge Trader, where traders can get a funded trading account up to $1 million and keep up to 90% of the profits. The program has simple rules and no time limits. Go to surgetrader.com/TTV and use the promo code TTV for 10% off.
Well, Macy's and I really aren't friends. After I was short like the entire. The majority, I wasn't the entire, but the majority of the way. I mean, I got out several times on the way to the upside, but didn't have the one that count, which was holding it overnight, because we're day traders and we don't hold their shares overnight. Obviously, as you guys know, it's AMD that could be the next big story. 135. I'm still not seeing a big offer out there. I don't know if it's not that bad. 70, 80,000 shares on the tape there at 135. It just wicked the top. I just realized that my stop was gone on AMD. There it goes. Is it going to hold above? Hold above? Nope. Instant rejection. Short underneath. If it breaks back above 135, I get out. So that was the over-under trade, the over-under trade. Just making sure I say that right. So it broke 135, got to 08, and then failed the breakout. So I had my stop in place to get out of 100% above 135, but waited for it to break back underneath the 135. Got 96s on the way back in. This is still pretty strong. It printed, oddly enough, that's not a coincidence, I don't think. It printed 70s on the way back in there. I don't see any wick to 50. That's right in front of where the seller was before, which was at 60, was mid 60s. That's where it caught a bit of a bid. So if it breaks down underneath the 60s, I think you can see 134. If the 60s hold, this is a strong stock, and that key price that we got in ends up a key price in the other direction. So AMD starting to work. I'm gonna have to take some Intel out for 5-cent scalps if that's all it wants to give me, because that does not seem to want to move all that much. AMD seems to be where the action is on the chip names. One more I wanted to get to. While I'm in that Rivian, sort of gave you the plan while I'm not really doing anything with it, looking for the bigger hold, I have to note that Tesla's above VWAP here and showing some signs of strength. Tesla rolls over, and Rivian doesn't start working for me, then I think I'm in trouble. Tesla breaks 237, I probably just get stopped out of that Rivian trade. So far, so good this morning, but we haven't talked about one Mag 7 name. Mark in the chat, Meta. This one speaks for itself. I just kind of let that one hang for a second there. There isn't a red candle on my 3-minute chart for Meta. It's up 1.3%. It is definitely on one. Caveat, 332 was kind of a big deal for Meta. That's $2 away. So the trend is your friend till the end when it bends. This is clearly a trending stock up. If it were to dip, this is 328.25 or 30. That looks like the key price level, resistance to support. If it comes back in, maybe $1, I'd look to dip buy Meta. That's a super strong one. Adara?
Yeah, just keep an eye on Broadcom. Another day to the upside, actually reaching all-time highs. So we had earnings after close on Thursday. Yesterday on Monday, we did have a price target increase. And also now there's an announcement. This came pre-market that Caltech and Broadcom have announced a multi-year research and development project. So keep an eye on Broadcom strong again.
That stock's relentless.
Keeps on going. That 1,000 break, man, that's definitely one. 135 coming in once again on. Let's see if there's any real follow through. Kind of broke in initially from off yesterday's. Yeah, kind of a little bit of profit taking potentially. Dips about 50 pennies or so. I did try the long into the break and get stopped out into that push back in. But yeah, that 135 finally holding right now. Again, the market kind of breaking back above some of these previous candles as well. So a strong market, that 135 coming in. Let's see if it continues to stay resistance from yesterday or we just blast through. But I think the bigger picture move here is that AMD continues to make new highs. It keeps on stepping up.
135.
Yeah,
I just had the
bigger
break.
picture.
So the short, actually, what's weird is it's upward trending stock, and I've actually made money on the shorts. So it's been pretty clean taking scalp shorts, but it just failed the breakout. But the buyers might come back into this. This is a situation where if it does break out this 135, you want to give it a few chances. And the short, you don't have to have it at 35. I feel like if it fails the 134.5, you can probably get in underneath there. So I'm just waiting for this battle to be won by the buyers or sellers. It might need to take out the quarters, show some actual bids above 135 and not just a false break, or just get underneath 134.50. You get in and out for like relatively tight stops at a level like this. I don't want to get too wrapped up in it and then get jiggled around way too much. Meta too high. I like that one. Hampton's Trader, yeah, well, I'm just going to keep watching the tape of AMD while holding on to the Intel and Rivian shorts, which seem like they're okay. It's this triple C that everyone keeps asking about. The most simple thing I can say about this is obvious level at $2 just failed. Very, very obvious level on a $1 bounce stock. So a stock that just bounced off $1, and I mean like literally just bounced off $1, double taps a big level at $2 and cannot seem to get through it. My first inclination, is, generally speaking, is I want to be fading off a level like that until it shows it can break out. So good volume, 55 million shares, looks pretty good, but you guys can see the resistance on that CCC stock. Okay, AMD still having that battle. I want to be on the right names. You've seen it's been AMD, Google, Microsoft was a good short eventually, hanging on to Intel and Rivian, not really going too far away from those. And AMD, you don't want to miss, because 138 breaks, I mean, it's like a, what do we call that, Sharif? Sharif calls it the what is it? What is it, like the clear sky? Blue sky setup, that's what it is. There's not much above there. So you have room to run. You could get a $3 move, you could get a $5 move. Everything is out there for you, but this battle is real at 135. Easy to get chopped up if you overtrade it, though.
Yeah, so just watching again the Uber position there, still holding in and around that 62.5. Let that consolidate before it kind of picks a direction. But the market super strong here, kind of continuing that bounce back up. Watching that Amazon, that 145 is the bottom of the day as of right now. So still kind of staying a little bit of an interesting level to interact with as well. Nvidia kind of makes it all the way back up to in towards that 473, 474 area where we saw sellers get aggressive yesterday as well. So watching that come in, maybe this 135 as well, right, on AMD, kind of struggling to get past it as of right now. I did throw up a little bit of a moving average there on the AMD to kind of keep me with the trend. Again, if you guys remember, my goal for today is, although I am very, very tempted to attempt the short here at that 135, I'm going to try to stay long as AMD is above the VWAP and holding on to this moving average as best as possible. But yeah, no, we've been talking about like how I keep getting chopped up on attempting the counter trend, and yeah, it can be very, very tempting if you tend to be a little bit more leaning towards the short bias. And I guess my practice again is I'm trying to practice not to fall into that what do you call into the void, into the pull of the dark side. So
that's one way to look at it. I mean, that said, I mean, the dark side is a pathway to powers greater than the light side. Some might deem those to be unnatural. So just throwing that one out there. So hey, look, man, if you're not gonna drop a Star Wars reference, and I'm not gonna pick that one up and run with it every chance we get. There's some buying happening. Just zoom in here for you guys to see. I did make the top wick at least temporarily on Intel, and then jump right back in the trade. I actually got a price better by 2 cents. It doesn't really matter. But buyers stepping in right at and beneath the 44 level. So I trimmed some of that, saying, hey, if it's going to be 5-10 cent range, I'm going to take some of it, and then if it gets back above, maybe re-short it at like 7s and 8s or something along those lines. So while it's sitting around here, actually get something out of the trade, and if it pushes lower, great. So that's what we're going to do. AMD is, I guess I don't want to keep talking about the same stock over and over again, but I mean, AMD 135, it is still battling. That resistance looks pretty real. I just want to take you guys to Google because it broke that 132. So Google ends up being correct. Now, I'll be honest with you. When you short a top like this, you know my style of trade. I'm going to get out when it shows me strength off a support level. I play support to resistance in a target and tend not to hold through it at the open. It's just how I am. But if this goes further, that looks like a bad out. It just looks good because it happened to bounce. Now you're at that 132.50. That's the pre-market high as the futures are rolling over. It's setting me up for that lower high short on Google. The only thing I have to be concerned with is the 132 that was resistance turning into support. So I want to make sure that I get a price, which likely, in the high 30s to 40s, where if I have to get it all out or most of it out in front of 132, that's good risk to reward with a 32 half stop. So just walking you guys through the thought process there with regards to Google. Intel starting to work to the downside. I mean, Rivian's in the money 2.5 cents. Remember, I'm looking for 15 cents on the first out. So if it doesn't go that, then I don't care. But looking for that reentry in Google. Is the futures, hey, they're holding green.
Yeah, pretty solid hold recovery on the futes there. So I like this 103-ish level here on the Oracle. I did post a little bit of a long here on that hold, but it seems to be running away from my order. Wow, as I say that, it just prints about 30-40 pennies off that 103. I like that hold, kind of making a little bit of a higher low. We kind of determined this trend from earlier. Wow, it's already about 40 pennies blasting off of. I was sitting at 103.07s, and then now it's printing 103.40s off of that level. So very strong bid coming in off of that 103. Again, you can see that we did try to flush it. You hold on top of it, and then you scream right back up into the trend from earlier, and then now you hold it once again, and now you're pushing right back up into VWAP, which happens to be right at 103.60, so only about 20 pennies away from that. We took a little bit of profits there on the Uber as well, going into the breakout of this consolidation high we've been doing for so long. So let's see if we can push into that 63. It seems like Uber is a nice and steady slow ride to the destination, which may be that 64 high, all-time highs there on Uber. Slow and steady bid catching there. AMD
yeah,
finally.
Slow and steady. Just make sure you take it easy when it's a slow ride. Yeah.
AMD broke that 135. As soon as I take it off my chart, it starts to make a move there. So that's pretty nice. Thanks, AMD.
Brian knows what's up.
135 is blasting off. What's Brian saying?
Slow ride.
Yeah,
Take it easy.
on-
Brian Flores, shout out to you in the chat. I always, look, all my litmus test is if one person gets it, that's enough for me. When I'm at home, my daughter laughs at everything. She doesn't even understand those types of references, but she kind of knows what I'm looking for. She's like, oh, Daddy must have said something funny. And then she laughs, and it's like the cutest thing ever. You have no idea what I'm talking about, sweetheart, and she just laughs. It's amazing. Your kids laugh at everything you say. But just a couple of things here. One, this just happened on Intel when it hit the bottom. So I got filled in front of the low of the day, and immediately it retest 44. So it took the better part of, call it like 6 or 7 minutes, maybe closer to 10 minutes, to start this rollover into the bottom. And now it immediately wants to retake that or come back up to the top. Sellers emerged at 44. So the short's good, but I want money fills over 44 to reload that one and continue to ring the register there. Alphabet, which we just got into, well, if it shows some buying in front of 132, what I say, take something out in front of 132. So we sat it out, waited for it to get to that pre-market high level, put in a lower high, showed signs of weakness, wicked the top here, got back underneath. So that's the setup. Go into 132.50, make a high underneath it, either put in a lower high that you can join, or wick this high, fail your key level, and then jump in and then stop to there. So I want this to break 32 and get back into the low of the day. That's 2. And then the third one, of course, is Rivian. First target was actually getting to the low of the day, so we'll ring the register down there. We used to have an EV graphic, which you could hit when we're trading an EV name, but I don't know where it is, unfortunately. I would do it if I could. Shout out to everyone in the chat that's been mentioning other names, but I wanted to be a little bit more focused here today. I broke one rule yesterday. I did break a rule today, but it wasn't with regards to trading. It was with regards to preparation. So I'm not going to be angry with myself over that. It is what it is. Affirm, I should have been short this one off the 40 level. I don't see an obvious trade unless it might have just set it up at the bottom end of that range for the afternoon, which is 39.5 into 40. I'm not wondering if you don't look for a reversal at that price, but I'm just going to stick to my guns at that 40 level for now. And then Airbnb. Sometimes, all right, I'm just going to cancel my bid here because you can see it's already made the bounce off that 138. I didn't get picked up along with it. This is looking like it's pretty strong in here. So Airbnb looking pretty strong. It's bounced off a good support level. Unless I'm wrong. Okay, yeah, it looks like that's not really that key of a level. I was going to say this looks like it is a key level at 140, but I'm not so convinced of that just yet. So I want to reload Intel. I want to be patient with Alphabet here and see if it can't break down 132, get to that low of the day again, stick with the short, and then I'm going to hate myself for missing AMD long just now.
Yeah, so just kind of this market consolidating near its bounce here, near the bounce highs. Yeah, the AMD move is absolutely wild. I kind of leave it alone, and it just starts to go off that 135. So a little bit of a continuation, long off of that, giving you almost about what is this 130, 132 area bounce all the way to 136. So a decent move there. A little bit of continuation, long happening there on AMD as well. So again, Uber kind of a similar story there. Uber slowly trekking back up to the upside, obviously not as volatile as AMD. And again, Nvidia kind of pushing towards its highs definitely helps, giving you a little bit of a tailwind on the sector. Let's take a quick look at some of these other chips. Right here, I'm just going to look at Intel. Intel not really looking too similar there as it is pretty much sold off. So very opposite there on Intel. Let's take a quick look at AVGO as well. We know that it's been running off that 1,000 mark, and yeah, you get that strong continuation right off the open there into past 1050s there. That's pretty cool. Holding VWAP as of right now, so trend is still very well intact there on AVGO as long as it holds above that VWAP mark. Take a look at these ES and the NQs. The future is kind of attempting to push back towards their former highs on the day. 16.5 definitely going to be a little bit interesting. Whether or not anybody shows up at that level that's what I'll be watching for there on the futures. But some other names that I kind of had on watch today were Coke. Coke was kind of breaking out of some levels. So let's take a quick look at Coke. I like to do like a quick. It is about what 10 o'clock, so it's been about 10:17. So it's been about almost an hour since open. And yeah, let's take a quick scan of what else has been going on with some of the other names we were watching earlier on. So Coca-Cola. Why was I watching this? Quick chart on the daily right here, breaking out of multi-month highs. Again, you had that dip in October of this year, and we've only been kind of slowly trending up. But as of yesterday, we did attempt to break through this consolidation, and we're getting a little bit of that continuation happening today on Coke. So I did have Coke on watch, but it seems as if though I have kind of missed the move off of yesterday's levels. This consolidation high of 59 was definitely interesting. You kind of failed to follow through below 59, only about 10 pennies to the downside off of that level, and then you're catching a slow, nice and slow bid back to the upside off of VWAP on Coke.
I'm going to suggest
what's going on?
AMD just broke 136.
Wow, that thing's still
So
going.
if you guys are following along here, okay, so I did reload Rivian, got some out at the bottom, reloaded some up at the top there. Obviously, Intel somehow is still working on the short, despite the fact that the rest of the chips are super strong here. But AMD just broke 136, and the first available dip feels like a fail break of the even could come in, and I'd look to buy that dip, 135.5. Now, it was rightfully pointed out in the chat that 137 could be in play. I think that makes a lot of sense for a key level. Just a note here on Tesla. Tesla just tested previous support on the week or the last week right in here. So it tried to get back into the 237 mid to high and starting to turn right around. If this breaks out 238 back into this previous support level, I think it can fly. As I said, I just reloaded Rivian. We'll see if that one continues to hold down. But joining the trend in AMD makes a ton of sense. And shout out to everyone that caught this the day two, I want to call it, but really it's not even day two. DocuSign. DocuSign, $55. So here's your daily chart. That is $55. I know it's up 5%, sorry, up 3% already, but this stock has not shied away from having bigger moves than that. So it just broke a major level at 55. If it retests that level, this one's on the radar. We want to join a trend in a strong stock. Well, I submit to you AMD, I submit to you DocuSign, two very strong stocks in here. I'll look for 55 back in on Docu. Shout out to everyone in the chat that's been yelling about that one.
Bit of a strong bounce happening here on Apple, attempting to push back towards its highs. Again, a bit of a downtrend with respect to printing lower highs off of this pre-market session. We reject in and around that same area, that 193 halves, that consolidation off the strong sell-off in the morning yesterday, and we just continued to sell off of that. Coming in today, you have a strong wick in the pre-market again off of the CPI. Sellers step right back in at that same level at that 193.55, and off the open you attempt to push right back into that level, and then this is strong wicks on the 5-minute here off of that 193 half level, but that VWAP bounce looking very interesting, almost a V-shaped recovery back into that 193 level here on Apple. But let's continue to see whether or not sellers come in aggressively as we push back towards that 193 halves, because if they step out of the way, I think that the market definitely has some room to kind of continue back to the upside there, printing closer to some of these pre-market highs here, both on the ES and the NQ. So I guess I'm trying this long off of this 146 here on Amazon. A little bit of a hold above that 145, but we're keeping it tight. So let's see how far that'll get. Just a quick shot there. But Uber, Neil, is working very well as well. Kind of slowly grinding back towards those highs from yesterday. Again, 63.64 on watch as well. And looking at the 15-minute chart here, pretty strong off the open on the 15-minute chart on Uber as well as AMD. So two strong names. SPY as well. Okay, so this is interesting. SPY kind of coming off of its pre-market levels here, strong bounce happening. So we kind of talk about, I had 462 kind of marked as a level. Yesterday's closing price, also in and around that consolidation area on the SPY. You do kind of wash around that price. It is the middle of this range. You can see off the CPI and the morning reaction low comes in right at the center right there, and we're pretty much in that area as of right now. So I'm curious to know what the SPY will do here, maybe a potential pivot point. Again, giving us a potential direction if it's going to come back to the upside or it's going to flush back down. But we have done about a 50% retracement of this CPI action that we've gone from 830 into the open. So we've reverted back about 50% of that price action, and the market bouncing definitely is showing us a little bit of that reversion as well. I'm watching Oracle here. Oracle also kind of coming right back into that 103 as well. So it was nice the first time around. It was nice the second time around. The third time, I gotta watch the tape here to see whether or not it's gonna hold. But before that, we're gonna pass it off.
Before we go to the desk here, just give me a quick second. Intel just wicked the top again. Now I'm always willing to make the top wick. I reloaded it at 10s, got out at 15, try to keep it tight in there, but it's setting up for another reverse off the same price, and I'm still holding on to Rivian. I did get out of Google, sort of mentioned that was showing some signs of strength off the 132, but it's still holding 132.50. So I'll look to rinse and repeat this. If it's going to be like a 40 to 50 cent scalp range, I'll take that the next time through. Let's get to the desk. It's time for the small cap recap with Adara.
ADTX, this one halted earlier. This is definitely still one to watch. So we might be halted again here. This one has basically entered into a definitive agreement to acquire F.M. Biosciences. So this one is of note as well. Keep an eye on this name. We also have C4 Therapeutics, CCCC is the ticker for this one, announcing a collaboration with Merck with regards to antibody conjugates, so keep an eye on this name as well. Last but not least, Petro Pharmaceuticals, PTPI, basically partnering with an over-the-counter switch technology provider here. Keep an eye on these guys.
Another one to keep an eye on. Oh,
another.
It looks like ARM. And look, obviously we're talking about a lot of chip names here today. None as important as maybe AMD and Nvidia, but ARM is trying to hold that 65 level, which had been so key. It closed at 65 or just underneath it. It tried to fail underneath 65. It kind of did. It went to 64.20. That would be a key level. If this breaks underneath 65, I mean, forget about the market being strong. That makes it really, really weak, and it could always break down. It's a big level underneath it, big gap to be filled, at least down to 62. So if that gets underneath this 65 level, I probably look for a setup short that can take me down into it. So shout out in the chat for people mentioning that one. AMD, so much for it pulling back to 135.5. AMD doesn't want to do that. Why? Why would you bother giving a dip into 135.5? Oh, wait a minute, that's exactly what it did. But I was over there. Obviously, you saw me in Intel, just getting out of that Intel trade as AMD is dipping. But AMD does hold on to that half. Resistance at 136 even, though. So wicks 136 and immediately failing underneath. That's not a great setup for a long off 135.5. So I'm going to sit out that entry there. Maybe look for something over the 136. The dip buy, oh, there it is. The dip buy that I did just get is DocuSign into 55 here. So if the market pulls back, Rivian is still the short that has not really gone against to stop me out. Joining DocuSign in front of the 55 level. I will go back over to Google, but just have to get my stop in there on DocuSign. Alphabet, I should say, did not get the reload. I wanted the back end of the trade so it gets up to 132.5. I tried to catch it on the way back in. This still looks like the right level to be in the short on Alphabet, just going back to the well. But I need it to come back and pick me up. So I'm still favoring some short ideas here outside of looking at the trending stocks up. That's AMD, that's DocuSign. I'm sure there's a couple of others as well. But those are the two that I'm looking at.
Yeah, just a slow and steady grind there, grind back up on Uber. Again, pointing it out. It is strong off that 62 that we kind of had, and it held that consolidation, and it's slowly catching a bit to the upside as the market attempts to do a little bit of a bounce off of some of these levels here. Now, something else, Neil, that I've been kind of watching is that the Dow Jones is near all-time highs.
Dow.
The DJI itself. Now, I know a lot of people kind of don't really look at this as much, but again, I think it's
Price
worth.
weighting is stupid.
I think it's worth a watch, just with respect to how much volume it kind of does, or like in terms of how. I guess, what am I trying to say? How many people actually trade this this entity here on the Dow Jones?
Well, I would say track it as investors more than trade it. But yeah, you're right. I mock the Dow because of the way it's constituted. It doesn't make any logical sense. But anyways,
it's just been I've been watching it for a couple of weeks now. It's just been on like this tear where every day you just gap up, hold, and sure, in between there are periods of consolidation that happen. We had one the first week of December that was pretty elongated relative to the consolidations we've had on the way back up through the level, but we're pretty much right there, knocking on the door of these highs, the highs being 36,952.65, and we're only about a few points away from that 490 coming into play there on the DJI. So again, I'm not too familiar with the constituents that this has, or in terms of like weight, what the highest weighted constituents are. I think I did.
It's easy to figure out because
it's price weighted, right?
It's price weighted.
Yeah.
How does that make any logical sense?
Price softies up there.
Doesn't matter how many shares are in the company. I get it. And the best part is Mr. Love Shack in the chat's like, it's the boomer index. Well, think about that for a second. It's a boomer index, and even I don't pay attention to the Dow. And you guys are always mocking me for being a boomer, as I'm in my Mr. Rogers sweater.
I don't know. People have I guess people have mocked me as well for like, what's the DJI? Who trades the DJI? Hey, listen, if it moves and it has volume, it has liquidity, and people trade it, there's going to be opportunities there.
I'm perfectly cool with that. I'll give you a bit of a pro tip though. It's cooler. It sounds cooler if you call it the diamonds.
The diamonds?
Yeah, diamonds.
Where does that come from?
What? Why is that an okay boomer? The diamonds is just a cooler way to say. Anyways, it's just a nickname for the Dow. But just a couple of things to get to. One, VWAP, Rivian, thank you, but it's making a higher low. So it gets into VWAP. I talked about reloading that one. A little tighter into resistance this time, but it just bounced off 1820. That's another higher low. So what I'm going to do is if I can even get something here in the 30s, I might take that as well on Rivian. DocuSign, the trend is your friend till the end. When it bends, it bounces in front of 55. It's right back up, retesting the high of the day. So we grab the dip buy in DocuSign. So that's good. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be upset about that. You want to make sure you're continuing to go along in the stocks that are trending up. However, that's at the cost of not getting into AMD there. So AMD continues to go higher and higher and higher. It's just do not fight the tape. Thankfully, DocuSign's going up, but this clearly just wants to take out every single top that it sees on AMD. You zoom it out. When we talk about this being a blue sky setup, you're through significant levels on the daily until you go all the way back, and this will probably fill in at some point. There you go. You got to get to 2022, and if then go even further back. Now I went back too far because there's that crazy wick in there before you see levels. So you're into not uncharted territories, but into massive levels to the upside years ago on AMD. That's a blue sky setup. I still want to continue to look for opportunities to buy the dip there. Successful in DocuSign. Maybe it's 136 even. I should have just stuck to my guns with 135.5. That would have already given you, I'd say 50 cents to 80 cents in there. It ticked a buck. But the next dip buy would look like the 136. But some short setups are still in there, the way the market is setting up. Like the market's still putting in a lower high. If you ignore what happened on the CPI number, All you did is resist the overnight resistance on the NASDAQ. And I'm not saying throw out what happened with the economic number, but sometimes if you do that, things become more clear. And we essentially wicked the same resistance level that we had overnight on the NASDAQ. That's where you'd expect to curl. That's where you kind of got one. So long trending stocks, I think, is the game plan. Short things that are still setting up for those shorts. Wayne Lee and Tom H are both saying Cassava Sciences at the same time.
Hello.
So shout out to both of you. We have our own Wayne on the desk. He's great. Whoa, Sava up 11% and trending. So this is a short sell. This is a short play here. 37% short flow. I wanted to make sure I got it right there. So it's 37% short. It's already broken out on the daily. Next level up. Those are like wicks up here at 32.50, but there was some significance to the 32.50 price. If you go back to the beginning of the year, you can see it was like immediate support to resistance at 32.5. That means it's got $1.50 to the next significant resistance level since it broke 30. That just sets up to, yeah, why not? This looks like it could be a buy the dip at VWAP or 30. You got another $1.50 to go on that move for sure. Let's get to the desk with Adara and see what's going on in the world of crypto.
Yeah, crypto stocks here a little bit calmer than we were seeing yesterday with the large move to the downside as Bitcoin was reaching one-week lows. Right now, though, some of them kind of cooling off, including Coinbase. Coinbase actually did have a price target increase this morning from Piper Sandler from 80 to 125. So definitely one to watch, just trading about 0.5 to the upside right now. In terms of Bitcoin itself, as you can see here, large volume and large move to the downside yesterday. Right now pretty calm, just a little bit above that 41,000 area here for Bitcoin. So yeah, we're just down about 1.4% around that 41,300. Ethereum also down just below that 2,200 level. Everything else here pretty mixed. Worth noting, Cardano up almost 8% right now, guys.
Cardano, shout out to my boy. Sean's all about the Cardano, to be sure. You just said, Matt Carnes just said, what about Google? Didn't get my entry price. That's pretty much it. So, our last entry was off the 132.50. I was able to grab like 40s in there. It just ticked up to 36, so it didn't really give me the entry. Like that kind of a thing matters when it's a 40-cent range that you're playing in. If you're off by, I know it doesn't seem like it makes sense, but if you're off by 5 to 10 cents and you do that on a consistent basis over the course of years and all that good stuff, like that's just not a trade that works. It has to set up risk to reward, and you've got to get the right fill. So it might work from time to time, but overall, you've got to also price in the times that it doesn't work. So yes, it would have worked if I just shorted it here, you get the scalp trade, but I have to consider, well, what happens if I take that short and then I get stopped out? If I'm doing that all the time, it's not the way that I want to play it. I like to think of it in like poker terms, right? Like you're not just playing the hand you're dealt, you're playing the range of hands that you'd have and the range of hands and decisions that your opponents would be making as well. So I always consider that with the market. Just because it would have worked if I shorted lower doesn't mean I want to do it there. Rivian, on the other hand, I take some out because it's looking a little bit strong. It's still holding underneath VWAP. So I'm still holding out that we get a print low of the day and in front of 18. So the short is still working on that. French Tunisian just said that Meta's getting close to my setup. Which one might you be saying? 332 I thought was resistance. I don't know if it already gave you that short. I'm going to argue that it already gave you the short off 332 because that was pretty close to it and you're getting a pretty decent pullback. It's such a strong stock. Usually wait for the perfect short. I don't know that I'm going to say that's the right setup for me. I'd almost think if it's a strong stock, that 328 would be the area to look for a dip buy, only because it was a significant level before. So that's what I'll be thinking about for Meta. But I'm staying away from it for now. Priority 1 is finding a trending stock and getting long. Priority 2 is that stock is AMD. Why are we not already in it? So I like DocuSign, but it's AMD that is, I'm not going to, should have had it. I canceled a bid at 135.50. And I don't know why, other than it didn't feel right based on what I saw at 136. So it was kind of a gut feeling at what happened in the tape at 136. Sometimes you go with your gut and it's wrong. Joining the trend clearly would have been absolutely fine here in AMD.
Yeah, I'm pieced off of a little bit more of that Uber kind of slowing down a little bit, well within trend, sure, but I do want to take some profits here underneath that pre-market high, that 63 coming in as well. But yeah, Uber kind of has not broken its trend since about, what is this I have here? It kind of hopped up onto the trend around 950-ish in a distinct manner, and then still has not really broken its moving average here. I just have an 8 moving average kind of on my chart, symbolizing a strong aggressive trend if price is holding above that. So yeah, AMD very, very strong and continuing to the upside. I did leave it a little alone because I was starting to get a little tempted to short at that 135, and I was like, no, I do not want to do that.
Nice.
I'm going to take it off my chart and kind of step away from that temptation a little bit there. But yeah, very, very clear that the longs were not wrong, and the fact that it's holding all those moving averages above VWAP signifies that there is definitely a strong bid on the book on AMD, a little bit of a continuation of a multi-time frame trend into that's been happening. Again, big catalyst, right? Finally a strong competitor for Nvidia's A100 chips,
Yep.
and I think that's a pretty valid reason
Which
for
everyone's
AMD to
been
catch a
looking
bid.
for.
Yeah.
Right? Like
It's
even
like what was so if you saw what the market did off of Nvidia and all the other kind of names blasting off the bottoms due to AI news. Right? A lot of those consolidations were due to the AI sentiment. So a lot of the run, I think, in my opinion, that we're having this year is not only just off of the inflation cooling, but also we've made some bases, some sentimental bases on large caps off the AI news, and I think all of those prices are very strong reference prices in terms of a catalyst holding a level in price on AI. Now,
and on that 137 just hit.
what's that one? Oh, 137. Wow.
137 on AMD. It's ridiculous. I'm going to get to just very quickly. One, we talked about SSR bounces. Oracle is obviously down 11%, so it's short sell restricted. It just double tapped 102. So the next step would be to hold on to this higher low at 102.20. If it does that, I'll look for a quarter long with an out at the bottom. So if I see buyers step up in that 102.20 level, then I'm going to look for an exit. Look for an entry. Sorry. On Oracle off that 102.20. Looks like they just did. So gimme always gets. I can pay 30s, but I don't want to. There we go. I actually got the fill there. So I just got 28s on Oracle. Actually, I got some 29s and some 27s. But if it breaks 102, I'm going to be out. Want to make sure that it holds on to that. But it's AMD that is, you know what, in taking names. This is just relentless to the upside. As I said, it's a blue sky setup. There really isn't any significant resistance here on AMD. You know, you have to go way out there on the daily chart to even find anything on AMD. Even dollar level, to me, at this point, has just turned into something where you're looking for, like, on the 36 level, it was an opportunity to get in 135.50. So I don't know if I don't treat it the same way as we get to 137. Like, a failure here would be an opportunity to buy the dip. And that's what I would want to take it as. Looks like, obviously, DocuSign's not breaking highs anymore. Rivian is the much stronger name. And I can be upset with myself for not being in it. But at the end of the day, you can't just, you have to put the trades on, not just kind of make the call at 135.5. And I canceled my bids. And that was clearly the wrong decision. Where we got it here. Lisa Su is her. DVD, you were 100% right. Lisa Su was definitely winning today. But Oracle, a very specific plan for an SSR bounce. It does not hold on to 102. I don't look for another play on that until it gets to like 01 or reclaims 02. Something big on an even dollar level. 100's a support level, so I would probably trade that regardless of it being SSR. But after 102 broke, I'll give it that 25 cents or so. And then after that, look for something else when it comes to Oracle. Super weak name, down 12, so down 11.5%. Now in that SSR territory as we go over to the screen for Adara and Sector Watch.
Another pretty strong day for chips. Nvidia joining the rally today after being weak with the rest of the Mag 7 yesterday. We also have Broadcom actually making an all-time high earlier today. AMD also, as just mentioned, still really strong, but Intel a bit weaker here within the electronic technology section. Within technology services as well, Meta to the upside, but Oracle very much to the downside. They're on earnings. We also have Google as well to the downside a little bit after that antitrust loss to the maker of Fortnite. In terms of this side of the board here, some interesting stuff to talk about, including energy minerals to the downside as oil prices are lower. We also have utilities a little bit weaker and consumer durables a bit weaker, led by Tesla here. Retail trade, consumer non-durables a bit more mixed. Finance as well, pretty mixed, and with health technology, guys.
Thank you very much there, Adara. It is definitely, I mean, this is like a chips hold my beer type of moment in the market right now. And it's not everything that's moving. We already talked about, I mean, ARM wasn't necessarily participating, but this AMD is absolutely relentless.
Apple's about to break highs.
Apple's about to break highs, but Oracle, it's still falling. It would have to, if I entered here, would have to reclaim the 102 level. But Apple now making a move to the upside. Finally, this could actually take out key levels from yesterday. Remember zoomed out too far there. Remember 193, if you watched the show yesterday at the open, it was a short off of 193.50. Right into previous bottoms. If this takes out 193.50, Apple goes off to the races. It's actually flat on the day. But that would be a heck of a move. First things first, though, that was the level yesterday for the short. It couldn't break that in the afternoon. It actually tried to break that at the open. You could have shorted that level as well. I think it's a long reversal style play, but first things first, it's at a key inflection point while the futures are still holding resistance. 16.5 looks like resistance on the NASDAQ still.
Yeah, so yeah, that 16.5 I think is going to be a little interesting, as we've said before. But yeah, a bit of a consolidation hold. So I think that with a lot of these tickers kind of holding near their highs, Apple as well, like we just said, kind of attempting to break its highs. Softy just holding pretty much inside. Same with Google and Amazon, still well within their opening range there on a lot of these tickers, but some of them attempting to push through those highs. And yeah, that 63 comes in on Uber, and the first little push through that gets you a nice little strong little push back down. So potential profit taking as it kind of the bid kind of reclaims right there in the 90s and holds on to this trend here. So that 63 coming in, only about a point away from all-time highs there. But as we're pushing into the middle of the day here, about 15 minutes roughly left until 11. Let's see how probable that breakout in towards all-time highs is really going to be around midday. I think that the breakout, the strong momentum, more often than not, we see that coming in off the open in the morning session, and things tend to either slow down or go a little sideways in the midday session, kind of looking for a potential continuation or reversion going into the late day session as well. But we're getting some strong action on some of these names pushing back towards their highs. I just want to point out Apple real quick as well right here. Take a look at why this is a little significant. It was again pointing it out, that 193.5, a bit of support on Friday. That supports turns resistance on Monday. We come right back into it, and it stays resistance off the open, and we're only about 20 pennies away from that 193.5 on Apple. So that'll definitely be an interesting look. Maybe some confluence with this area underneath that 16.5 as well there on Apple and Qs. You
just went all the way till 10:45, Obi, without saying confluence.
Oh wow! Is that a? That was a while. I mean, I was saying it in my head the whole time, but you know.
The people want to hear you say it out loud. I mean, that's what's up. So I did get into Apple, by the way. You'll see that 193.50. That was the same price from yesterday. But the other thing that happened was, look at DocuSign, that 55 level. So it tried to break underneath, holds 55, reloaded on the wick, and let's see if it can get back up to the high of the day. I'm offering pretty much the same price we did before in the mid-30s. Shout out to John G. John G in the chat there with the super chat, appreciate you. John B was a good R&B artist back in the day. Walmart and GUN, which obviously spells gun as well, So you want us to just look at those two symbols. So as I said, I got into Apple, looked to scalp that short. Walmart, there we go. Wipe out bottom into 150 on Walmart. What a setup this might have been. Not a stock we day trade very often, but Walmart's been in a downward trend, obviously since earnings, but that is a good bottom that got made. The wipeout bottom was yesterday, sorry. Wipeout bottom yesterday through 150 with a big reversal, then holds a higher low off the 150 level. That's generally speaking a pretty bullish reversal if you can get a breakout through the top. So I'd keep an eye on Walmart. If you're trading this one, I mean, obviously it's been in a downward trend, so the higher time frame is suggesting it's still a short. But for the day trade, when you get that higher low, I'd at least look for maybe one or two more like dip buys. It just has to get through this 151.75, it looks like. The new position for me was Apple off that 193.50. So I'll pop back over to the 3-minute. I got this bad wick in here, so either I zoom in really far. You guys get the idea. I'm short here in the 30s. I want to get one out in front of 193. Then I look for VWAP on Apple. So same resistance level as yesterday, very similar plan to yesterday. Ring the register at 193 there, ring the register on the dip buy, and DocuSign, I'm holding for 56 here. If it takes out the high, I want 56 even. You don't necessarily want to get out too early on something which has been doing what DocuSign has done. And remember, on the higher time frame, what this 55 breakout looks like. So that's 56. If it breaks 56, room to 58. Lots of room to the upside on DocuSign. With any luck, it can do what AMD is doing, and I don't have to worry about the fact that I've missed on AMD. As you can clearly see, you're going to miss trades out there. It's been a good morning. I can't complain about it, although I haven't found my way back into Alphabet, which was my best read today, yet I'm not in it. I was able to capture the top and then the lower high, but I have not gotten a re-entry into Alphabet because it's either off of this 132.5 or it's back at the high of the day 133, or something has to set up breaking down that low. So unfortunately, it hasn't set up for me again, but that's part of the game. If it's not setting up, you don't have to trade it, right? Thankfully, there were plenty of other things which are continuing to work here, but it would be nice to have caught a third trade there in Alphabet if we could. As I said, Apple, the new entry point, was off of yesterday's levels. Those are important. One of the most valuable things you can do as a trader is remember that you trade every single day. And if you trade every single day, the levels you observed the day before can come into play the following day. And if you don't zoom out or don't trade those levels, then you miss out on opportunities. I'm not saying it's going to be a working short, but there's no way I'm not making a decision or at least watching the stock when it gets to that key level from yesterday on Apple. Whether it works or not, it's important to trade these levels.
Yeah, a little bit of a pullback coming in here on Uber off of that 63 level here. So might just piece off of most of this right now. You know what? Actually, yeah, I think that we did kind of break the trend a little bit here. So I do want to get off of that. But before anything else, let's pass it over the desk with Adara.
I thought this from Money Talk.
Yeah, the DXY here on the daily just slightly to the downside. We initially saw a big pullback after we got these CPI numbers. So U.S. CPI year over year completely in line. Same with the core CPI. So very much in line here. We do have PPI data coming tomorrow, though. So one to watch out for, especially with regards to the USD. And we have the federal FOMC meeting. So it began today. We'll end tomorrow there. Keep an eye on that with regards to Fed Powell speaking as well tomorrow, guys.
I'd speak tomorrow. Oh, and there goes my Amazon long. Okay, so we got stopped out of the Amazon long there. 146, kind of a bit of a churn. I was looking for the long here, but take a look. Get long, get longer, stop out. Get long, get longer, stop out. That 146 staying quite interesting here in and around this level. This is just in and around VWAP as well. So I'm attempting to get long a consolidation that's happening right underneath VWAP. VWAP holding. Let's see. Specifically, I have VWAP here as 146.14, and as you can see, the high of that consolidation is that 146.14ish, or in the teens, just over the past 20-30 minutes or so. But yeah, we've been consolidating underneath the VWAP. That's a little bit bearish to me, but we are making relatively higher lows. off of that 145. So I think I do want to lean on that bias a little bit more instead of the short side there. But I do understand that if this is going to take longer than I think, in and around this 146 is best just to piece off of it and come back to it a little bit later. Again, what did I say earlier on? I'm trying my best to try and stick with what I think is the trend and trying to keep my mental capital as preserved as possible, trying not to overtrade. So we had a few ideas. We had the Uber idea. We had some AMD ideas. AMD didn't really work too well. Let's go back and take a look at what AMD is up to. Let me just take this Amazon off my screen for now.
I'll give you a hint. It's at the high of day.
All the way up.
You don't even have to, like, the funny thing is, like, just
All the way up.
what is AMD doing? It's at the high of the day.
Yep.
You'll probably be right. It's like don't worry about a broken clock being right 2 times, like twice a day. You just say high of the day and you'll be right like 80% of the time today on AMD. That has been the answer. The good news is, and the good news about it here, and you said you didn't want to fight the trend, Obi, you've not been shorting AMD, which it's an easy thing to do when you see a parabolic. It's not really a parabolic move. When you see something doing that, it's easy to want to fade it. You're tempted by it, but you didn't do it. So
something I'm working on.
No,
the temptation is.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Every single day, just be a little bit better than yesterday.
I find myself falling into those traps. Yeah.
I've done, man. We've all been there before. Everybody, if you've traded, you've been there before. It's easy. It's easy to look for that fade because it's not an easy thing to buy high and sell higher. Heck, man, I talked myself out of 135 long. It's at 138.
Yeah.
Talked myself out of it live. You can probably rewind the tape and find it. But I'll be frustrated here. Come to my chart for a second because this is mildly frustrating. I just tried to reload. So Apple dipped into 193 as Brainerd is speaking. What up, Fed's Brainerd? If you're going to turn the market, that's okay, except for DocuSign long. But I got a fill in front of 193. I tried the reload, thought we'd get 40s this time. Should have just stuck with the 30s on Apple. I think VWAP is the next stop into the downside. The market is pretty range bound here. So to expect it to pull all the way through VWAP and free fall does not seem overly likely. Speaking of DocuSign in the long, we joined it at 55. We got back in at 55. It's giving you essentially a 30-cent range. I wanted to take out the top at this point. So we've already done the dip buy scalp portion of it. I wanted to give the bigger move into the upside. Maybe it loads up a third time, but I'd be wary of 55 holding a third time. It could test down into VWAP. So I don't think I reloaded a third time. I might wait for VWAP here in DocuSign. Joining the trend, great. Now the next thing that needs to happen, take out the top, go higher, do all that good stuff. Airsoft in the chat just saying Affirm's at 40. Affirm's at 40, AMD's at $1 million. I wanted to just update Rivian because Rivian, this is still looking weak off of that 1845 level. So I think I want to just hang on to this for the 18s at the bottom. I've done some scalping in the range underneath. I think if the short's going to work here, it should really work because relative strength and weakness matters. This is down 4%, and it's not really showing signs of breaking out. Juxtapose that with Intel, very similar setup. Okay, never mind. Very similar setup that if I jump back in, it would have worked. So, you know, Intel's been doing that to me a little bit here. But Rivian's much easier hold there on Rivian than it has been on Intel. You just got to be able to do that. Like, it's fine. Basically get one win sandwiched in between a couple of losses, and I could have gone back into it a fourth time, but you don't have to fight every single battle. Just pick the battles that make the most sense to you. It's been a good morning to be sure, but Affirm at 40. There's a buyer here at 39.80, by the way, if you guys are watching Affirm. If that breaks, yeah, if they break that buyer here at 39.80, I think that could be a nice entry point here on Affirm. Only 4 minutes to go. It's been a wild one. It's been a fun one. Obi, I think you've done a great job staying more disciplined because it's been tempting to short that AMD.
Oh, yeah.
But the other side of that coin is finding a long. It's well and good that I found DocuSign, but it's even better. AMD just broke 138.
Yeah, 138, 139, still going. And I see some people in the chat just talking about AMD, CompSRX saying AMD loss of the day so far. Yeah, if you're fighting that short, again, I was very tempted. 135 shorts, 136 shorts, and when I realized that we're just stepping up and this is why I put that moving average on my chart. I'm like, if the indicators are good for one thing, it's to keep me in check and recognize a trend here. Clearly holding, every bar is holding above. This is a 9 EMA here, right? You can see exponential moving average. The period is 9. So again, very, very aggressive trend, and then you're getting that trend acceleration. So no sign of capitulation of this trend as of right now, but it keeps on going up. And another name, Neil, that just continues to go up is Cassava. Cassava kind of, we talked about this yesterday, being that heavy short float, and this thing is just continuing to the upside here. Again, like I talked about yesterday, a bit of a repeat offender when it goes on runs like this. It'll kind of squeeze it out, maybe accumulate some fresh shorts who are maybe not as familiar with what Cassava does over and over again for the past few years, and the move kind of rhymes itself over and over again here. But yeah, let's see how far Cassava is going to get this time around. Again, let me take a quick look left and show you guys. Yeah, 34.50 is definitely a decent level to watch out for there, Neil. But we might save 50 cents here, 50 cents there, coming up to $1. But that dollar might get blown out if you're short, because this thing, the short float, is quite heavy on this one.
Oh, no question about it. But if you've been long that stock, if you've been long AMD, then that's been what's good for you. At the end of the day, you just got to find those winning trades. DocuSign just failed the high of the day again. I was going to get to Affirm. So Affirm, I'll get to Affirm first because it just happened. So they broke that guy, the seller, so the buyer at 39.80 just broke and then refreshed and then got hit again. So I'm short it now. I'm short at 80 because the first time that they filled that buyer, I hit the bid and got filled, and then they refreshed. I was like, okay, I'll give it a minute or two. If that buyer refreshes again, like a second time, I probably just get out before 40s and look for another entry. Well, it actually got through that order. So I just took the short, waited this time for a firm to get to 40 before shorting it at that price. So if it gets to VWAP, I'll take it out in front of VWAP. Apple continues to be okay, but the market is showing signs of strength. We might take out 16.5. You know what? This time
we're right there.
Execute first. I'm punching out of Apple. It looks like we're going to make a run at that 16.5. I'm getting out of Apple, just sort of taking the win on that. I can hold Rivian and Affirm because they're better short setups. Apple's actually turning red to green on the day, so I do not need to be in that one while we're testing that level. I'm perfectly fine with Affirm and Rivian here. DocuSign is attempting to take out the high. I think if something's going to give me that clean dollar move, it's going to be something like a DocuSign taking out that high of the day. I can look for another entry here above 55.5, but I need to see that breakout and then set up. So this looks like it's something worth holding, which is exactly what I'm going to do with it. And AMD, well, Enzo just said, will AMD test the 132 level? Checks notes. Yeah, 132 was okay today. Look, that said,
I was waiting for that 131.
No, that said, well, I like the 132 level, but
yeah,
I didn't
we talked about this earlier. Yeah,
At the open, it was Google that said, Google, it worked. AMD long 32 would have been better, but you just got to trade. You got to trade the setups that you like. I did like Google for a short today off the Epic Games. It did end up working out. Clearly, AMD 132 long would have been better, but that hindsight's going to be 20/20. Just identify the key levels and make the best trades to your ability. It is 11 o'clock already, so shout out to everybody in the chat who's having a fun day and who's in there joining us. You're going to have the midday show come through. You're going to get your education on where you learn to trade with Adara and Sharif. We'll be back at 2 o'clock, but for now, let's kick it on over to Learn to Trade. They got some great insight for you. How to trade. I keep saying.
Thanks very much for that, Neil. And what is up, beautiful people? Welcome to Learn How to Trade, formerly known as a midday show. That is your girl, Adara. I'm Sharif. And as usual, we're going to start waiting for the chat to populate before we get into our roll call and start shouting out some names.